Chapter 101 First Taste. The hotel was brightly lit late at night, and the surrounding pubs were bustling with people, creating a lively and festive atmosphere. The special car brought back the dark elves, who had finished their group activities. After they got off the car, they all looked happy, like elementary school students returning from a spring outing, recalling the happy things just now. Wherever they passed, blood inevitably spread. Fortunately, the people around thought it was the smell of blood from dealing with the dragon, and did not doubt it. Ouyang looked at the northerners, who were waiting for the dark elves to return. Their enthusiastic and cheering faces made him feel strange. If they knew the true face of the dark elves, I wonder what their reaction would be. They were not dragon-slaying warriors, but dragon-slaying demons. Ouyang sighed obscurely, feeling that he had shouldered too much. The camera had been taken back by Chung Nuo, otherwise Ouyang would be even more uneasy now. The mayor of Mo's Ubit and others were standing at the door of the hotel from a distance, following Chung Nuo and the others who got off the car. They went in together. Hot water is ready in everyone's room. You can take a shower right away. The bathtub is also filled with hot water. The hotel manager explained one by one. The chefs in the restaurant are all here. The ingredients are all ready. Just order whatever you want. Li Yuan, I want milk tea. There was a moment of silence at the scene. Chung Nuo pulled Li Yuan over with his hair, as if Li Yuan hadn't said anything just now, and said to them, just do whatever you want. Most of the dark elves probably want to go to sleep directly. Just now. The hotel manager looked at Li Yuan, and hesitated to speak. Li Yuan felt the hair wrapped around his arm, and sighed in his heart, no need. Chung Nuo whispered to it, you can't drink milk tea at night. I should ask Han Sheng to give Li Yuan a physical examination when I go back, to confirm whether human junk food has any effect on dark elves. It's okay. It's okay. The mayor waved his hand. Everyone is tired, go wash up quickly. Chung Nuo went back to the room and took a hot bath. He came out comfortably, took out a mini chair and put it on the table, sat down, took out the camera and looked at the photos taken by Ouyang. After he finished washing, Xiang Yuelong went to wash. The bathroom floor tiles were all red, and there was a faint smell of blood. Chung Nuo looked through the camera, saw his own photos, and finally knew what his combat status was like. He rolled up a bunch of his hair, looked at his hair, and then looked at himself in the photo. It's better to restrain some instincts when fighting in front of people in the future. He can cost both Sadako and Medusa. There are also many photos of Xiang Yuelong when he was promoted. Chung Nuo looked at them slowly. Xiang Yuelong came out after washing, with hot water vapor approaching, looking down at the camera display. Chung Nuo raised his head slightly, said in a relaxed and leisurely tone, look, Ouyang took a pretty good picture. Xiang Yuelong sat down on the sofa in front of the table, wiping his hair with a towel in both hands, the naturally curly hair stubbornly curled up in a mess. After I was promoted, I felt that the concentration of magic cube particles in this world was higher, and the power of the monster world surged over. Chung Nuo turned his head, and said after a while, your promotion should be a watershed of rules. When humans appeared at the legendary level, the rules relaxed the restrictions on monsters, and the fusion of the two worlds accelerated. Now the fusion of the two worlds is more than 60 to 70%, Chung Nuo guessed, it won't take a few months, the two worlds will be completely integrated. I hope the law will be more powerful, so that those advanced alien races can come one by one. A phone call came in. Chung Nuo put the phone on the table with his hair curled up, glanced at the caller ID, and answered the call. Hong Guang's excited voice came, Master Chung Nuo, there are not only tree people tonight, but also natural elves. We listened to you, and kept them alive. Put on the shackles that suppress power, we handed the people of the Western Alliance to the garrison outside. How are things going over there? Chung Nuo was puzzled. Nature elves? They are new in the Moonlight Jungle. There are 20 of them. Yes, we are also doing well here. Li Yuan said this island is the Morwa Dragon Island. There are many dragons' belongings. Hong Guang said faintly, I really want to go over there. It's more interesting over there. Nature elves cannot be killed yet. I don't know why Chung Nuo ordered them to be alive. As the first dark elf catalyzed by Chung Nuo, after working as a barbecue chef for Chung Nuo for several months. Hong Guang was very brave. We will be back soon. Take good care of them. Chung Nuo thought for a moment, and said, don't play with them. Hong Guang's faint voice turned into a laugh. No problem. After the phone call was hung up, Xiang Yuelong's voice came from behind Chung Nuo. You keep them. Do you want to use them as hostages when the war starts? Chung Nuo sat leaning, holding his chin with his hand, and said lazily, it's unrealistic to kill them all. It feels easy to attract disasters. And now I have finally reduced the hostility of the dark elves. If they kill too much, then they will go back. That night in the moonlight jungle, when the dark elves killed the natural elves, Chung Nuo discovered it. Not only did he discover it, he also experienced it himself. And there are disasters. Now that the two worlds are merging, it is better not to do things that may cause disasters. In the historical records of the dark elves, disasters may be attracted by wars. War means the death of a large number of advanced alien races. Humans are not like monsters. There is a world where they can take refuge. If disaster really comes, we will all be doomed. Fortunately, there are special minerals in the monster world that can suppress strength and mental power. The shackles made of this mineral can suppress the wearer's strength. Otherwise, Chung Nuo can only choose to kill. There was a knock on the door. Xiang Yuelong walked over to open the door. There were several hotel employees at the door. They pushed a food cart. The leading waiter asked with a smile, "Excuse me, do you need a midnight snack?" Xiang Yuelong glanced at the food on the dining cart, pointed at the toast with a crispy crust, and said, "Here, do you have juice?" "Yes." A tall man took out a bottle of juice from the dining cart. Xiang Yuelong looked at this man. His physique looked like a martial artist, not like an ordinary hotel waiter. Seeing Xiang Yuelong looking at him, the man smiled brightly. "Don't be nervous, I'm not a suspicious person. I just want to get an autograph." "Is Chung Nuo here?" Xiang Yuelong. "He's asleep." "Ah?" Xiang Yuelong took the plate with toast and a bottle of juice, and closed the door. After closing the door, a cold body suddenly approached Xiang Yuelong from behind. An arm with mysterious patterns passed through his armpit, and clasped it in front of his chest. The person behind him leaned forward, and smiled teasingly. "I'm obviously not asleep." Xiang Yuelong pursed his lips slightly, and turned his eyes away. "I was actually heard. I thought Chung Nuo was concentrating on looking at the photos." Chung Nuo reached out to take the plate, walked inside and put it down. "Can you maintain this state?" Xiang Yuelong walked over. "You have grown for a long time today on the Morua Dragon Island." "Right?" Chung Nuo picked up the toast with a fork, put it in his mouth, and spoke vaguely. "After you were promoted, the laws have become much more relaxed for monsters. I am still a human, and there are no restrictions now. You can grow as long as you want." There seemed to be light in Xiang Yuelong's background, and his eyes widened. Chung Nuo swallowed the food in his mouth, shook his fork and chuckled, tilted his head to look at Xiang Yuelong, and his long hair on one side fell from his shoulder. "Very happy?" Xiang Yuelong said hurriedly. "No." A chain extended from the end of Chung Nuo's hair, wrapped around Xiang Yuelong's wrist, and pulled him over. Xiang Yuelong walked forward with a tense face, following the force of the chain, and walked to the sofa where Chung Nuo was sitting. Chung Nuo patted the sofa next to him. Xiang Yuelong sat down reflexively. Chung Nuo leaned his body, his head resting on Xiang Yuelong's shoulder. His hair caressed Xiang Yuelong's cheek dishonestly, and some of it found its way into his formally dressed pajamas. Xiang Yuelong grabbed some of his hair, and couldn't help saying, "Chung Nuo, it's itchy." Chung Nuo seemed not to hear. More of his soft and flexible hair slid freely on Xiang Yuelong's body. Xiang Yuelong finally couldn't help it, and the vines of the soul-devouring wood grew out of his waist, holding back those hairs. "Let go." Chung Nuo ate his toast calmly, and glanced at Xiang Yuelong. Xiang Yuelong slowly and hesitantly let go of the hair, and as soon as he let go, the hair went to a more outrageous place, and he immediately grabbed them with the vines. Chung Nuo's hair had just been washed, and it was still a little wet, and it was particularly cold when it slid on the skin of the body. "Chung Nuo." Xiang Yuelong's ears were slightly red, and he shouted uncomfortably. Xiang Yuelong didn't listen to Chung Nuo this time. Grab all the hair that was stuck in his nightgown. Chung Nuo finished his toast, turned his head to look at Xiang Yuelong. His eyes were strange and charming, and his eyes were like water. The excitement just now has not completely disappeared. Chung Nuo whispered softly, and put his hand on Xiang Yuelong's shoulder, and pulled it down with a little force, and Xiang Yuelong's tightly worn nightgown fell off, revealing half of his strong shoulders and arms. Then Chung Nuo knelt on the sofa with one knee, and leaned forward towards Xiang Yuelong. The two faces were very close at this time, and both could feel each other's breathing. Xiang Yuelong's breathing was disordered, and he was a little panicked. "I remember you said last time that you also looked at those things. Right?" Chung Nuo smiled slightly. His eyes became deeper. The loose nightgown could not cover too much skin. The deep V neckline almost completely exposed the chest, and the whole person exuded a passionate and dangerous sense of temptation. Could this atmosphere be Almost keeping a distance from Chung Nuo's appearance at this moment made Xiang Yuelong feel a little dizzy. His cheeks were burning, and he didn't know where to look. The dark elf Chung Nuo was more blushing than when he was a human. Chung Nuo's obvious teasing state now made Xiang Yuelong's heart turmoil. What should I do next? It seems that I should do that. Right? Xiang Yuelong was like risking his life. He suddenly hugged Chung Nuo in front of him with both hands, holding him and his arms tightly. He was too nervous and forceful. It didn't feel like a hug, but more like a confinement. Chung Nuo's eyes flashed with a speechless look. Let go. Xiang Yuelong let go of his hand in panic and raised his hands. Is it too hard? Are you going to stay like this forever? Chung Nuo sat back, scratched his hair, and said with disgust. Xiang Yuelong felt guilty. I'm sorry, I'm a little. Chung Nuo tilted his head and wondered, don't I have any temptation for you? Does it make you have no impulse towards me? Xiang Yuelong shook his head like a rattle, and the strong young man looked like a pitiful little thing at this time, and clasped his hands and twisted them. He said very quietly, No, I dare not. Knowing that Xiang Yuelong was honest and inferior in his bones, but Chung Nuo never expected that he would not even dare to do this. He was not the subordinate. What was he afraid of? Chung Nuo held his forehead and let out a long breath. Holding dares to hug, doing dares not to do. Chung Nuo crossed his arms, raised his eyebrows, and said, If you dare not, then I will find someone who dares. Xiang Yuelong immediately shouted, Don't. He suppressed his worries and anxieties about poor skills. Following what he had seen before, his hand slowly reached for the straps on Chung Nuo's waist. The lines of this body were really attractive. Xiang Yuelong was afraid of being overwhelmed by impulse, and couldn't help kissing Chung Nuo's shoulders and arms. There were mysterious and beautiful lines here. Xiang Yuelong knelt between Chung Nuo's legs. Looking up from this angle, Chung Nuo's movements were lazy, his eyes were slightly red, and his style was swaying. I wanted a deeper hug, a closer distance. I wanted to really hold this person. Chung Nuo inserted his ring-wearing hand into Xiang Yuelong's hair. The white back of the hand unconsciously exerted force under the stimulation. The following taste of the marrow was completely smooth. Chung Nuo's fighting and killing intentions after returning from the Moroa Dragon Island still made his body excited. This excitement turned into another desire in the second half of the night. And he was very excited and couldn't sleep all night. The desire gradually faded, and the body suddenly became tired at a certain moment. However, Chung Nuo couldn't kick Xiang Yuelong, who had tasted the marrow after eating meat, away, so he could only indulge with a headache. The next day, when Chung Nuo woke up, I felt the soreness and fatigue that I hadn't felt in a long time. Chung Nuo lay on his side, being held by Xiang Yuelong like a pillow, and he was completely depressed. He was completely deceived by Xiang Yuelong. He lost control halfway, and Chung Nuo was a little unhappy, and he turned from a puppy into a wolf. Although he didn't say he was very tired, it was beyond his expectations. He had already consumed some energy on the Moroa Dragon Island yesterday afternoon, and with the exercise last night, Chung Nuo didn't want to get up at all. Xiang Yuelong was energetic when Chung Nuo woke up. He woke up too, hugged Chung Nuo and nuzzled him, ignoring Chung Nuo pushing his hair, and excitedly leaned his head on his shoulder. Chung Nuo. Xiang Yuelong spoke in a very sticky and coquettish voice. Negative distance. He did it. It turned out to be not as difficult as imagined. Chung Nuo's eyelids jumped, and he closed his eyes and said, I'm hungry. If Xiang Yuelong had not been promoted to the legendary level yesterday, he would not be tired now. Xiang Yuelong hugged Chung Nuo reluctantly. His expression and actions were full of nostalgia. What do you want to eat? Tofu pudding. Xiang Yuelong paused as he stood up, and said hesitantly, Will there be tofu pudding in the north? Chung Nuo raised his eyelids. Then oat milk. Okay. Li Yuan got up early last night. Chung Nuo said that he couldn't drink milk tea too late, so it should be okay in the morning. So he flew slowly to the restaurant, and bumped into Xiang Yuelong who was packing breakfast. Li Yuan could sense Chung Nuo's scent on Xiang Yuelong from a distance, and it was very strong. This smell could never come from simply sleeping together. The idle dark elves froze in place, looking at Xiang Yuelong with eyes full of resentment and anger. Why on earth is this happening? Mother Tree. The dark elves who had gotten up early to eat also noticed it. Their gazes were like materialized arrows, making the hotel waiter confused and trembling. Did Xiang Yuelong offend the dark elves? Why do their attitudes and eyes look so unfriendly? Xiang Yuelong had learned to ignore them a long time ago. He packed breakfast according to the original plan. pretended not to see the staff's hesitant expression, and left with a happy breath. "Ah, I'm so angry," Li Yuan muttered. "It's all the law, which made Master Thorn Rabbit come out so late. They haven't come out yet. In their ideal development, Chung Nua will choose one of the 3 sub-kings, and then use the mother tree to breed the next generation of possible kings. The power of the 3 sub-kings is the strongest except for the mother tree. Their power combined with Chung Nua's power, the Dark Elves born will definitely have good natural qualifications, and have the opportunity to be promoted to the mythical level." Unexpectedly, Li Yuan now feels that milk tea is not fragrant. Speaking of which, Master Thorn Rabbit and the others seem to be addicted to TV dramas now. Li Yuan feels even sadder. Xiang Yuelong packed various breakfasts. As soon as he entered the room, Chung Nua said, "Did you have a conflict with them?" "No, why do you ask suddenly?" Xiang Yuelong was puzzled. Chung Nua raised his head with one hand, the quilt slid down to his waist, and his voice was lazy and hoarse. "Ouyang Di sent me a message, saying that the hotel manager called him, saying that the atmosphere between you was not good, and they were very worried." Xiang Yuelong, "I did nothing, and there was no eye contact." Chung Nua looked at Xiang Yuelong, and found that the marks on his neck were quite obvious, and his breath seemed to be mixed with his, and he roughly knew what was going on. He sent a message to Ouyang Di, put his phone on the bedside table, got up and sat by the bed for a while, and then went to wash up. While he was washing up, Xiang Yuelong stood at the door and suddenly asked, "Have you decided which Dark Elves to leave on Morrowood Dragon Island?" "Not yet." Xiang Yuelong, "I think it's good for Li Yuan to stay, and he can manage Morrowood Dragon Island well. This kid has also become a bad boy now." Chung Nua thought, and said, "I feel more at ease if it stays with me. Even under his nose, he can still cause trouble from time to time. How can he be in the far north?" Xiang Yuelong felt a little regretful. The mayor and others soon came in a large group. After listening to the hotel manager's call in the morning, he was still a little worried, but seeing that Xiang Yuelong and the Dark Elves were fine, he was relieved. They arranged a tour plan for the Dark Elves in Mo's Uba City. Mo's Uba City is a tourist city, and there are many attractions directly. The mayor's secretary asked Chung Nua in confusion, "Aren't you going?" "Chung Nua, we don't need to go. You can go out for a walk later. Please let us know if you need anything later. We will try our best to meet your needs. It's better to stay for a while. The dragon has been destroyed, but it may appear again at any time." The Northerners kept throwing sugar-coated bullets, trying to keep more Dark Elves. After they left, Chung Nua stayed alone in the quiet room, with a pen and paper, write and delete the names of the Dark Elves. After finishing, it's time for lunch. After lunch, Chung Nua and Xiang Yuelong walked to the famous Niver Cathedral. This church has ancient murals and a glass dome. Under the dome, there is a statue of an angel with compassion for all living beings. Under the light reflected by the colored windows, the angel statue is visually shocking, like an epic story being told. Chung Nua and Xiang Yuelong walked into the spire church. The accumulation of years is like a strong liquor. You can smell the unique smell just by approaching. The mural of the angel driving the devil is a little mottled, but it does not affect the overall appearance. Chung Nua saw the sharp contrast between the two above, and his eyes narrowed slightly. The black crow feathers behind him in front of the murals made him feel a subtle mockery. I don't know what other Dark Elves felt when they came here to see the murals in the morning. After visiting the famous Niver Cathedral, the two walked around Mobia City casually. The snow scene was very beautiful. Everywhere was covered in silver. The snow was falling slowly, giving people a very peaceful feeling. Chung Nua bought 2 roasted sweet potatoes on the roadside. The roasted sweet potato vendor insisted not to charge money. Chung Nua casually left her a capsule coin. When paying, Chung Nua was actually a little embarrassed. He just remembered that he didn't have the currency of the North Country. Luckily the old man said he didn't charge money. He took the opportunity to give the capsule coin. Eating roasted sweet potatoes on the snowy streets of the North Country, Chung Nua felt that he would never have thought that he would be here at this time a year ago. There was a faint sense of comfort and happiness. In the evening, they had dinner at a restaurant that was very famous online. After dinner, they went shopping for a while, and then returned to the hotel. Chung Nua sent the paper, with the names written on it during the day, to the Dark Elves communication group. Those whose names were written on it were to stay on Morrowood Dragon Island. Most of the Dark Elves whose names were written on it had no resistance. The treasure of Morrowood Dragon Island could not be dug out in one day, and a small batch of giant dragons would come later, so it was a very good amusement place. In the original world, They were frustrated by being hunted by other alien races. Now they have the opportunity to wander around in their homes. They are very happy. Chung Nua told them not to kill the dragons they met in the future. They put on special shackles and did hard labor. There was fun. And there was warm service from humans. The concentration of magic cube particles on the Maluo Dragon Island was also high. The Dark Elves who stayed were very satisfied. The three of them and more than 50 Dark Elves took a plane back to Dragon Country. Chung Nua got off the plane and went directly to the Research Institute to find Han Sheng. Han Sheng was stunned when he saw Chung Nua, who was the size of a normal person. This visual impact was much greater than that of a miniature body. You came to me in such a hurry. What do you want me to do for you? Chung Nua took out 3 dragon eggs from the data map. Han Sheng's eyes widened instantly. And he took 2 or 3 steps closer, looking at the dragon eggs with great interest. This is the dragon egg, right? I was thinking of asking you for one to study. Dragon eggs? Although they are monsters. But which Dragon Country people don't have special feelings and fantasies about dragon eggs and dragons? Chung Nua reached out and stroked the shell of one of the dragon eggs, saying, the number of dragons is less than that of other advanced alien races. It seems to be related to the hatching rate of dragon eggs. There are 15 dragon eggs on the Maluo Dragon Island, but only 2 are active. The others are almost dead. Han Sheng was slightly surprised, and quickly observed the 3 dragon eggs, and touched them again. You brought both healthy dragon eggs? Ouyang Di said on the side, this one is mine. Han Sheng rarely showed an envious expression, said to Chung Nua, give me one too. We are old friends. It's not a problem to give you one. Chung Nua smiled, and said, I'm curious about the current situation between you and an MO. Ouyang Di was puzzled, looked at Han Sheng, and then looked at Chung Nua. He had an MO. No situation. Han Sheng's expression was slightly tense. When did you become so gossipy? Ouyang Di smelled the smell of gossip. But when did Han Sheng and an MO have a relationship? Chung Nua curved his eyebrows, and said in a gentle and steady voice, I have never changed. Chapter 102 Threat. Han Sheng didn't think so. From the first meeting till now, Chung Nua has changed a lot, becoming more and more irritating. Sometimes he doesn't even pretend. These 2 dragon eggs will stay with you. Chung Nua touched the dragon eggs. One is healthy, and the other is dying. See if you can figure out the problem of hatching dragon eggs. If you can improve the hatching rate of dragon eggs, then when those dragons come, they will have to kowtow to you. Negotiations will be much easier. Killing to stop killing is not the right way. Ouyang Di quickly took his own egg away. Han Sheng raised his eyebrows slightly. He wanted to say something but didn't. Finally, he said, Ouyang Di, when you went to Morwo Dragon Island with Chung Nua, did you participate in the dragon slaying battle? Ouyang Di's excited expression froze while holding the dragon egg. He said vaguely, I guess so. He took pictures. How can it not be considered as participating in the dragon slaying battle? He took a lot of pictures. Han Sheng smiled, although he didn't point it out directly, but his expression made Ouyang Di feel guilty. Speaking of which, where is Xiang Yuelong? Han Sheng glanced behind Chung Nua. Doesn't he usually stick to you like a follower? He was called away by an MO halfway at the door. When you were at the Maluo Dragon Island, there was a very strong energy fluctuation there. Han Sheng approached Chung Nua and lowered his voice. Tell me honestly, was it Xiang Yuelong who advanced or some dark elf who advanced? Chung Nua took a step back. There's nothing to hide, he did advance. I will re-register my information later. Han Sheng opened his eyes in surprise. Did he really advance? Who would not publicize the promotion to legendary level everywhere? But Xiang Yuelong was very low-key. Just like he was not the one who advanced. Han Sheng's emotions were too exposed. His face showed his thoughts. Ouyang Di thought that Xiang Yuelong was not low-key. That was called love brain. He only had Chung Nua in his heart. It was so sticky that it made his teeth ache. He saw the kiss mark on Xiang Yuelong's neck. There were also some marks on Chung Nua's shoulders, arms and waist, in the seams of the active clothes woven from flat vines and branches. Although they have disappeared now, he saw them clearly when he boarded the plane from the North Country. Moreover, many dark elves cast unfriendly eyes on Xiang Yuelong, and the whole plane was filled with a black mist of resentment. No wonder an MO called Xiang Yuelong away halfway. Probably to learn from each other. Han Sheng smiled and said, this matter must be reported quickly. It is a good opportunity to inspire people and inject vitality into society. This is none of my business. The relevant departments of the alliance will do it. Chung Nuo said, turning his left hand. Li Yuan appeared in the palm of his left hand. Li Yuan's smile was not as elegant and bright as before, and his spirit and mood were average. Chung Nuo stretched out his hand and handed Li Yuan to Han Sheng. Before studying the dragon egg, please help me check it, measure its blood sugar and blood pressure, etc. Ouyang held the dragon egg in both hands, very curious about this scene. Han Sheng chuckled. He came up to Li Yuan, curved his eyes and smiled at it, like facing a kitten, looking at it, and said to Chung Nuo, "You didn't let me check them before. Why did you suddenly change your mind?" Ouyang thought of what Li Yuan said late at night in the North Country Hotel, and then thought about how Li Yuan always held a small cup of milk tea every time he saw him, and suddenly felt that he had discovered something. Chung Nuo specifically said that he wanted to test blood sugar. I didn't expect that the advanced alien race would also be addicted to milk tea. How magical. Li Yuan turned around and said elegantly, "Master Chung Nuo, I'm fine." Chung Nuo held his left hand and weighed it up and down, saying, "It's heavy." The smile on Li Yuan's face became smaller. Han Sheng looked at Li Yuan. "I can't tell. Why did you give it a special physical examination?" Chung Nuo had a strange expression, and was silent for a while before saying, "Do you think that things like milk tea, fried chicken, and hamburgers will affect the health of the Dark Elves?" Han Sheng, I haven't thought about this. It's a new topic. He stared at Li Yuan. Li Yuan was not happy to be stared at by him. The eyes that naturally moved upwards were slightly narrowed. The smile gradually became colder, with a warning. "Test it." Han Sheng motioned them to follow. This time, he did not go to the laboratory dedicated to the Zero Group before. He went to the other side, took a blood-drawing needle and several blood tubes, and put on the label stickers spit out by the machine on the side. "Put out your hand." Han Sheng smiled at Li Yuan. Li Yuan looked at the sharp blood-drawing needle, lips slightly pursed, jumped off the table, and grew bigger in the surprised eyes of Han Sheng and Ouyang. The enlarged Li Yuan complained and stretched out his hand. "Don't you have a smaller blood-drawing needle?" Ouyang stared at Li Yuan blankly. The fiery red hair and many fluffy big tails occupied his vision. The scarlet eyes were as crystal clear as gems. The active skin clothing like a butler's uniform fit his body very well, outlining the outline of his agile and slender body. The noble elegance and devilish charm rushed towards him. And its big ears, with spherical hair inside, are very eye-catching. Growing from small to big, from cute to sexy. Now, the nine-tailed fox in real life. Ouyang murmured. Li Yuan tilted his head, looking at Ouyang with stars in his eyes in confusion. "What's wrong with you?" Li Yuan came closer. Ouyang faced an enlarged flawless face. His heartbeat speed increased sharply, but soon, Ouyang woke up in those scarlet eyes. On the Morua Dragon Island, this guy's tail is completely blood-colored, and his ability to devour flesh and blood is terrifying. When Chung Nuo became smaller, he already felt the appearance and feeling of a dark elf of the same size. At this time, there was no emotional change. Han Sheng was amazed. The feeling of a miniature body is completely different from that of a human. Just like this, he went out and killed many former top-tier stars in seconds. The skin of the alien race is really too amazing. Han Sheng suddenly looked at Chung Nuo. When you became smaller, the dark elves you see are all of the same size. Right? Aren't there a few of you who are attracted to them? Although Xiang Yuelong is also good-looking, it is difficult to compare the human skin with the skin of the higher alien race. They are not on the same track. And the feeling is different. In fact, Xiang Yuelong also feels a bit alien after using his ability. Chung Nuo himself likes this kind of inhuman ears, tails, tentacles and the like. No, don't frame me. Quickly give it a physical examination. Li Yuan thought that it would be great if Chung Nuo's preferences were the same as Ouyang's. It reacted. Ouyang seemed to be attracted by its skin, although I don't know why he didn't have this reaction in his original form, but Li Yuan wanted to transfer Ouyang's reaction to it to Chung Nuo. Li Yuan sighed in his heart. Chung Nuo is not easy to deal with. I don't know when he will get tired of Xiang Yuelong. Master Thorn Rabbit is still addicted to TV dramas. I don't know when he will break out of his shell. But looking at the current situation, Master Thorn Rabbit and the others will have no chance after they break out of their shells. The next generation of the legendary king died without even a fetus. Li Yuan used his tail to tease Chung Nuo's hair, and was strangled by Chung Nuo's hair, which made Li Yuan grit his teeth in pain. When it opened its mouth, Han Sheng and Ouyang saw its sharp teeth, which gave people a chill under the light of the laboratory. Han Sheng took a break. and then tied Li Yuan's outstretched wrist with a rubber band, and found a blood vessel to draw blood. Chung Nua asked casually, "Do you know how to draw blood?" "I've learned it. Sometimes you need to do it yourself." "But some?" Before the word came out, Han Sheng found that the needle was inserted, and no blood came out of the blood tube, because it was inserted crookedly. Puff. Chung Nua chuckled. Li Yuan drew blood for the first time, and didn't understand what was going on. Han Sheng remained calm, pulled out the needle, applied disinfectant solution to the other side, and continued to pierce. Only after the fourth piercing can blood be drawn successfully. Li Yuan felt the tingling sensation on the back of his hand. Confusion flashed in his eyes. Does a human need to be pricked so many times to draw blood? Han Sheng seems to be a person of high status in human society. If he needs to be pricked so many times, wouldn't others need more? Okay. Han Sheng pulled out the needle, took a cotton swab to press the wound, and the others also had cotton swabs, but it only took a few tens of seconds, and the wound stopped bleeding. 2 footsteps were heard outside the door. Xiang Yuelong saw the very conspicuous fiery red fox as soon as he pushed the door open. Confused, he quickly realized that this was Li Yuan. It was the first time he saw Li Yuan grow bigger. This feeling was very bad. Xiang Yuelong subconsciously looked at Chung Nua nervously, and quickly remembered that when Chung Nua was a mini dark elf, he saw that the dark elves were all the same size. Just like the enlarged Li Yuan he saw now. And Imo also saw the enlarged Li Yuan for the first time. He looked at the dark elf and found that its standing posture seemed relaxed. But there were no flaws, no slack spots to attack. The multiple tails behind Li Yuan kept swaying back and forth like patrolling the weak spots. Try blood pressure. Li Yuan glanced at the 2 people who came in, following Han Sheng's instructions, and doing the movements. Xiang Yuelong walked to Chung Nua, said, "What are you doing? Aren't you going to give the dragon egg to Han Sheng for research? How did it become Li Yuan? See if those junk foods have any effect on its health." Xiang Yuelong thought of Li Yuan's recent diet. "I thought that I really needed a physical examination." Chung Nua noticed that Xiang Yuelong had some blood on his body. His breathing was not stable. And Anmo's was even more unstable. They should have just had a sparring match in the training ground. The results will be available later. Now I will take Xiang Yuelong to register. Han Sheng looked at Xiang Yuelong, and was full of energy. A legendary pure human. This is the first one. Chung Nua, a legendary dark elf who was expelled from the human race, had no way to refute. Han Sheng took Xiang Yuelong to do the test. The news of his promotion to the legendary level quickly spread within the institute, and then spread outside. Soon there was a rumor on the internet that the first legendary ability user appeared in Dragon Country. The Western Alliance immediately went to investigate, but found that there were not many people available. The most useful ones had just been caught for taking the tree people to the Moonlight Jungle. Many people were also arrested during the Prophecy Propaganda War. Now there are not many people available. Han Sheng took Xiang Yuelong through a device. He was shocked to find that the data of the legendary and advanced ability users were very different. He now realized that it was a miracle that none of the 0 group of ability users who went to support Mahai City last time fought against the legendary mermaids. Just looking at the data, Xiang Yuelong can now fight dozens of advanced ability users alone. This is just data. If it is a life and death battle, the possibility of dozens of advanced ability users killing legendary ones is almost 0, because legendary ones can't stand and let them fight. People with long legs can run. I don't know how strong Chung Nua is now. A legendary superposition of the body of the dark elf. Han Sheng was secretly shocked. Amazing data. Luckily Chung Nua is a human being. After the registration here, Li Yuan's blood analysis results also came out. Everyone looked at Li Yuan's blood report curiously. Chung Nua focused on blood sugar. Han Sheng said, "It's within the normal range." Li Yuan swung his tail, smiling brightly. "Master Chung Nua, I said I'm fine. Blood sugar is fine. But blood lipids are high." Li Yuan didn't really understand what those terms meant. But seeing Chung Nua's deep gaze, it felt bad. Chung Nua, those junk foods will indeed have an impact on dark elves. After the physical examination, Chung Nua and Li Yuan went to the Moonlight Jungle. He asked Xiang Yuelong to go home first and didn't let him go with him. The scene later might damage his image. In the Moonlight Jungle, besides Li Yuan, everyone came back first. And both sides happily shared the joy of slaying dragons and beating tree people. The joy of natural elves. A few days ago, I thought there was only one dark elf in the Moonlight Jungle. Under the Western Alliance's repeated instigation, The tree people who planned a sneak attack were beaten up by the group, together with the natural elves who had just appeared in this world. They were put on collars that suppressed their power, and were treated like monkeys in the zoo by the dark elves. Worse than the monkeys in the zoo. At least the monkeys in the zoo would not be laughed at. The newly emerged natural elves have already learned about the situation from the tree people. It feels very bad. I didn't expect the dark elves to cheat and sneak away. They have already taken root in this alien world. They don't know how much power they have stolen from the law. The most terrifying thing is that the tribe monsters far away in the original world don't know about this at all. They are still sending tribe monsters as much as possible. With a small number against a large number, it's no different from sending food. What's even more annoying is that the humans in this world don't believe in the prophecy. Dark elves are very good at disguising themselves in this world, and they are loved by many humans. A dozen natural elves sat listlessly in the cave, noticing that another dark elf had entered the cave, and their expressions were gloomy and unhappy. The tree man on the side saw the dark elf who had grown in size in the front, and immediately whispered to the natural elves, "That is Chung Nua, a dark elf who was transformed from a human in this world." The natural elves looked at the dark elf. Although the mental fluctuations on his body were restrained, but the momentum is very strong, the aura coming against the light is very oppressive. "Good afternoon, everyone." Chung Nua smiled, the corners of his lips slightly raised, and his tone was calm and gentle. A natural elf with natural blonde hair said in a low voice, "Are you legendary?" "Yes." Chung Nua looked at it. "What's the problem? Don't pretend to be a good person." Another blue-haired natural elf looked gloomy. "If you are thinking of changing our minds, I advise you to give up this idea. Watch your attitude." Li Yuan swung his tail, shattering a corner of the rock wall beside it. The blue-haired nature elf remained unmoved. Chung Nua looked at the blue nature elf with a mixture of emotions, bad, excited, happy, etc. The emotions were covered by the surface of his skin, making his smile and eyes look normal, but uncomfortable. "I didn't think of asking you to change your mind." Chung Nua looked at the nature elves with interest. "I think you need some voluntary labor. To deal with this kind of high-level alien, just throw them to farm. It just so happens that we have to start planting a new season of magic cube crops recently. Don't even think about us cooperating with you." Chung Nua's hair curled up a miniature natural elf, and said to the blue-haired natural elf with a smile, "If you don't cooperate, I will kill it." The expressions of all the natural elves at the scene were very ugly. The natural elf curled up by Chung Nua's hair gritted his teeth, and said, "Don't worry about me." Chung Nua moved the nature elf in front of him, and said, "I'm not asking you to do anything difficult. Just plant some land." "Planting land?" Chung Nua threw all the tools in front of him. "Hong Guang, hee if you don't plant land, you won't have food." The nature elves were disdainful. It was just food. Quan Rong took out a hamburger, and the strange smell made the nature elves look at him in confusion. Quan Rong held the hamburger that was bigger than him and ate it, saying, "How pitiful, I haven't even eaten a hamburger. So out of date." Li Yuan said with a smile, "We are civilized monsters now. And they are backward barbaric monsters." The natural elves were so angry that their faces turned red. They rushed over one by one, but were easily countered because of the power suppression collar. The dark elves coming from behind were holding a piece of junk food from the human world, and the various tempting aromas aroused the appetite of the natural elves. "But it's just food." The blue-haired natural elf gritted his teeth. "What civilized monster? The overall strength of the human beings in this world is not high. What civilization can we talk about? TSK, they only know how to fight and kill all day long." Li Yuan spread his hands, and his tone was sarcastic while maintaining elegance. "And they still claim to be kind and benevolent, but they do all the things that barbaric monsters do." The dark elves kept talking to each other, and a dozen natural elves were so angry that they wanted to fight them to death. It was impossible to fight to death, because they had to bow their heads under the eaves, and they didn't farm. Chung Nua killed one of their tribesmen immediately. It felt as if the monsters of the tribe died because of themselves. They were forced to farm. What kind of insult is this? This group of dark elves has become so strange. They all look weird. They don't have many words in their mouths. They also talk about movies and variety shows, milk tea and cola. They look backward. But it's strange. The hostility in them has been dissipated a lot. Each of them, anyway. It's strange. No wonder they can disguise and deceive humans' trust. When they were forced to farm, the natural elves suddenly remembered that they still didn't know why Chung Nua could become a dark elf as a human, and even a legendary one. Li Yuan and the others were only high level. Why did that human even allow it? This group of dark elves definitely took advantage of the loopholes in the law. But now there is no way to contact the tribe monsters still in the original world. The captured natural elves can only pray that the tribe monsters in the original world will either send more tribe monsters at one time, or not. The two tree people were also taken to farm. Although they came to the human world in advance, they did not learn about the things in the human world. The Li people were even less likely to send them any junk food. They were also confused by the words in the mouths of the dark elves. They felt that they had become country weirdos. The word country weirdo was also used by the dark elves. It means backward. Damn! They were so concerned. The dark elves were very happy. They supervised day and night. While they were working, I ate the delicious junk food, enjoying their country weirdness. Chung Nua was right. Being a civilized monster was better than being a barbaric monster. It was so happy to be able to despise them with a clear conscience. Things change. Chung Nua was not very happy, as he felt that the junk food from Dragon Country was spreading among the dark elves. He was a little worried, as Li Yuan's blood lipids had exceeded the standard healthy range. He went home alone, walking in the air. Passers-by were surprised to see the figure flying in the sky, which looked familiar and strange at the same time. Chung Nua heard the discussion below, and thought that it was time to let the public know about the enlarged dark elves. The basic good impression has been almost established. When returning home, Wang Mindong, director of the Special Armed Forces Bureau, came in person. At this time, "Did we disturb you?" Wang Mindong said embarrassedly. "No. Please come in." A group of people entered the living room first. They looked at Xiang Yuelong, who was sitting on the sofa, with bright eyes. Wang Mindong sighed. "Yuelong, congratulations on your promotion to the legendary level. The young are really awesome." "Yes, the young people nowadays are really fierce. Dragon slayers." After some praise, Wang Mindong and his friends mentioned their purpose. Wang Mindong tentatively said, "I didn't expect there are so many dark elves in the Moonlight Jungle. Do you know how many there are now?" "About 200. Chung Nua said. "There are more than 50 people left in the North Country. They are now addicted to human entertainment and food. They are very friendly to humans. Don't worry. I don't know why I am not proud, but feel a little embarrassed." Thinking of the takeaway orders in the recent report, Wang Mindong suddenly felt relieved. "I came here today, also to tell you the results of the interrogation of those spies. Western forces seem to have set their sights on the Dark Elves' resurrection characteristics. They will definitely not give up easily. We will continue to try to capture lone Dark Elves in the future. As for the Tree People, they have barely reached a cooperation. The Tree People are very hostile to the Dark Elves, so you should be careful." Chung Nua shook his head. "No. The Tree People definitely did not cooperate with them. They don't even know the basic vocabulary of human society." Everyone looked at each other. Did Chung Nua dig out other real news from the two Tree People in the Moonlight Jungle? "Chung Nua, more advanced aliens will come next. If you have any news, please tell me directly. I will deal with it with the Dark Elves." After a while of silence in the living room, Chi Daohe, the branch director of Fushan City, tentatively asked, "Kill them all?" "Of course not," Chung Nua said with a smile, and was quite cheerful. "There is a kind of, or in the monster world that can suppress power. If you put collars made of it on those high-level aliens, you can keep them alive." I thought Chung Nua and the Dark Elves would kill all those high-level aliens directly. I didn't expect Chung Nua to show mercy. Chung Nua looked at their expressions, thought for a moment, and told them about the disaster in the monster world. Wang Mindong and others heard the explosive news, and forgot to control their expressions for a moment, and subconsciously took out their mobile phones, and planned to discuss countermeasures with others. Compared with him, Chung Nua and Xiang Yuelong beside him looked relaxed. "Don't worry too much, if there is a disaster, as long as we don't let a large number of high-level aliens die." Chung Nua smiled pleasantly and gently, but if you look closely, you will find that his smile is not kind. After experiencing the real version of the Monster Gashapon machine, now a new game has started, Monster Scratch Fun. Chapter 103 Public Opinion. The monster catching game started with the eruption of the volcano in Sakura Country. A few days after Chung Nua had talked to the cadres of the Eastern Alliance, the news of the eruption of the volcano in Sakura Country came. The cause of the volcanic eruption was an island in the monster world that appeared next to Sakura Country. There were a group of giant dragons on it, and it was also a dragon island. Although Sakura Country was in the east, it belonged to the Western Alliance. They urgently asked for help from other countries in the Western Alliance. Although the Western Alliance countries responded to the call for help, but they did not set out immediately. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that they did not want their country's elites to die in the first wave of battles with the dragons. An ordinary dragon is stronger than other high-level alien races. One dragon is equal to 4 or 5. There are at least 20 dragons on the Dragon Island in the territory of Sakura Country, which is equivalent to 100 high-level alien races of other races. All Western Alliance countries have intentionally or unintentionally issued a call that all countries in the world should aid Sakura Country, which is also a human country. The purpose is known to everyone. How shameless. They didn't invite us to do good things, but they want us to rush to do thankless things? Some time ago, they wanted to sneak attack the Dark Elves who stayed in the Moonlight Jungle. Fortunately, they were smart and didn't let them succeed. Sakura Country should fight on its own. After the fight, we will go over to take over. Fuck. I just received news that the Dark Elves have already set off. Huh? They had the nerve to say that our little cutie would destroy the world some time ago. Heh. They really, I cried my heart out. Compared to other alien races, the Dark Elves have a unique style. Speaking of which, who can control Tsanghua? What has stimulated it to keep cutting recently? Don't mention it. My heart hurts. Chungnua and the Dark Elves rushed to Ingwa first, of course. They were not trying to do good things or repay evil with kindness. Their goal was to put special collars on the dragons, so that they could not make any waves. The Dark Elves like to do this very much. They rushed forward very fast. More than 150 Dark Elves fought over who would go this time. When they set out, many Dark Elves had wounds on their faces. Ouyangdi followed Chungnua and Xiang Yuelong again this time. His mission was to take pictures. He was terrified the first time, but he was familiar with the second time. Ouyangdi calmly took pictures of the battle on this Dragon Island. There were 2 legendary elves, plus a group of high-level Dark Elves. The 20 or so dragons on Nile Dragon Island were not enough for them to beat, and they fell down in a short while. The smoke from the fire dissipated, and the 20 or so dragons were lying on the ground. Some unsatisfied Dark Elves tried to get them up. Hey, don't lie down so quickly. Get up and fight again. Phosphorus Bone poked the lying dragon with a bone gun. The dragon Andy was angry because he was constantly poked by it. His majestic dragon eyes were full of anger. You can kill me, but you can't insult me like this. TSK. Ingu was shocked. We won't do the kind of things that only backward and barbaric races would do. Andy? A collar fell from his head, and then shrunk and fixed on Andy's neck. The fellow tribesmen beside him roared in shock and anger. They had already discovered what this was. We will never obey you. A bunch of disasters. Andy's golden vertical pupils were full of unyielding flames. Don't even think about it. Chungnua tossed the dragon eggs that the Dark Elves had brought to him. The dragons nervously looked at the dragon eggs he was tossing up and down. Ouyangdi had a subtle expression. He pressed the shutter button of the camera. It felt like Chungnua and the dragons were in the opposite position. It felt like Chungnua was the villain. Because Xiang Yuelong and Ouyangdi were both there, Chungnua managed his expression very well, and his tone did not reveal his true nature. He smiled and said, I heard that the hatching rate of dragon eggs in your dragon clan is very low. I advise you to be careful when you speak. Who are you? I haven't seen you before. Andy stared at Chungnua with doubt in his angry eyes. There are only 3 legendary Dark Elves. Even if the Dark Elf in front of him was promoted to legendary after coming here, he should have been outstanding. He should be as famous as Li Yuan and others. It is impossible for him to be unknown. The most important thing is why he can use legendary power. The law is still indifferent. Chungnua stroked the dragon egg with his hand and smiled slowly. I was originally a human in this world. The dragons were shocked. I want to discuss with you. Can we change our attitude towards the Dark Elves? Ouyangdi took another photo, and his mood became even weirder. He looked at the photo on the camera screen. Chungnua was holding the dragon egg. A group of dragons that were beaten down were looking at the dragon egg nervously, and the Dark Elves next to them were staring at it, looking ferocious. If someone who didn't know the situation saw this photo, they would definitely reverse the roles. You take it for granted, Andy said in a low voice. The Dark Elves are destined to destroy the world. We can't coexist with them. Even if you destroy all the dragon eggs, you... Chungnua loosened his hand. The dragon egg fell down. When it was about to hit the ground, it was caught by several chains. Andy was short of breath, not sure whether to breathe a sigh of relief or to curse. Xiang Yuelong flew over, come over and said casually, "It seems that there are not many healthy dragon eggs among these." Chung Nuo smiled. "The one in my hand is the healthiest. That's why the dragons are so nervous." Chung Nuo looked at the dragon and said casually, "You keep predicting, then did you predict this situation?" "No." Li Yuan said sinisterly, "You will only be beaten up by us if you come in batches." The dark elves around laughed in response. In the blood mist, the laughter of the dark elves was particularly strange and ethereal. The dragons felt as if a stone was pressing on their hearts. Perhaps this is the end of the world in the prophecy. They will be slaughtered by the dark elves in batches. I am not interested in slaughtering. Massive slaughter will only bring disaster. Chung Nuo looked down at them. But I don't want you to destroy this world. You slaughter humans at will. Compared to the prophecy that the dark elves will destroy the world, your random slaughter of humans will be the end of the world for humans. The dragons did not feel anything. One dragon said confidently, "Isn't it normal for the strong to prey on the weak? The creatures that dominate this world are so weak. But they occupy so much territory." Ouyang couldn't help but say, "Chung Nuo, why don't you just smash the dragon egg in your hand? The strong prey on the weak." "Chung Nuo, I think we can do that too." The dragon that spoke. "Feng Xiao, Lord Chung Nuo. Their ideas are hopeless. They are completely barbaric and backward. Cultivate the next generation." Dark elves say they are barbaric and backward? Feng Xiao's eyes are sharp when they were about to refute. He said, "Do you know what a city is? School, government, country, takeout, express, movies, cakes, burgers, fan products, etc. You don't know anything at all." Chung Nuo thought it was good at first, but when he heard about burgers and fan products, his eyes were complicated. Of course, the dragons had never heard of it, because they had never heard of it, so they had no feeling about it. This is civilization. Fo Xiao glanced at them. A better world than what those hypocrites of the nature elves said. After it finished speaking, it looked at Chung Nuo and said in a serious tone, "Lord Chung Nuo, please give them to me. I promise to teach these empty-headed guys what etiquette is." "Who are you talking about with empty heads? Let's fight if you can." Chung Nuo, "No problem, then I'll leave it to you." Chung Nuo gave it the dragon egg in his hand. Outside the Nile Dragon Island, suddenly, a boat approached. And there were also people with special abilities. They wanted to enter the blood mist. Chung Nuo sensed it and looked over. Xiang Yuelong stood up straight from his idle state and also looked in the direction of the newcomers. "Do you need to stop them?" "Stop them," Chung Nuo said in a light tone. "You go too. Tell them not to hang around Nile Dragon Island." Songhua nodded and flew towards the newcomers with a group of dark elves. Ouyang rolled his eyes. They are quick to take advantage of others. The deterrence of strength is the simplest. When the Sakura people saw Xiang Yuelong, they still wanted to talk about common interests and morality. Dragon Island should be studied by everyone together, and should not be monopolized by individuals or countries. But when they saw a group of dark elves, they could not use human methods to explain. They thought that these dark elves showed good personalities in Dragon Country. The Sakura people also wanted to ask for dragon eggs, but they were knocked into the sea by the dark elves without any hesitation, and left in disgrace and unwillingness. Xiang Yuelong looked at the many Sakura people who left, said to Songhua, "They will probably try to steal the dragon eggs later, you should be careful." Songhua said coldly, "Don't underestimate our vigilance." Chung Nuo left a group of dark elves led by Feng Xiao to guard the Nile Dragon Island. Before they left the Nile Dragon Island, Yakura began to make public opinion internationally, accusing Chung Nuo of occupying the dragon eggs. Ligua followed closely, and many Western Alliance countries spoke out. Ligua also published the Tree Man's speech, "Let the dragons return the Tree People's companions. This is an immoral imprisonment." Ouyang opened several accounts on his phone, and shouted angrily. Sitting on the flying monster, he said to Chung Nuo, "They are really shameless. Where are you going?" Ouyang looked at Chung Nuo in confusion, and turned his head. "Chung Nuo, I will airlift a few dragons to them, and take off the collars." Ouyang was instantly happy. Chung Nuo really airdropped 4 dragons to the place where the Sakura government was located. The Sakura government, which was still making a big fuss about public opinion, was instantly terrified. A number of their high-level ability users had been killed by the giant dragon in its prime before, and now most of those who survived were injured. Ouyang happily took out his camera to take a photo of the embarrassed Sakura government officials being chased by the angry giant dragon below. And the shutter kept clicking. He exclaimed, "It's really a world-famous photo." People on the international internet found that someone uploaded a photo of a giant dragon appearing around the Sakura government building. They thought it was a few days ago. But later someone mentioned it. And everyone realized it was now. Didn't Chung Nuo and his team go to Dragon Island to deal with the dragon problem? Why did a dragon appear in the city of Sakura country? I don't know, but I'd like to see it. The Sakura people wanted dragon eggs. So we just gave them 4 dragons. Yang spoke on his big phone. What a genius. I like this kind of direct action personality. Discharged with full marks. Don't you think Chung Nuo's behavior is a bit inhumane? Go away, the walking 500,000 are still the Holy Mother and Father. Just now, they were scolded by the Western Alliance. Chung Nuo only sent the dragon to the Sakura government building, and did not send it to other cities. Every grievance has its perpetrator. It is obviously done very well. Didn't many countries in the Western Alliance say that they should share and not monopolize? Chung Nuo quickly sent some dragons to their national government agencies. Support. The Sakura government building was in chaos. Although the 4 dragons were injured, but Chung Nuo was furious. The dragon egg was still in Chung Nuo's hand. If they couldn't beat Chung Nuo, they couldn't beat these weak humans? Chung Nuo said that this group of people only wanted their dragon eggs. The Sakura government building was in flames. Chung Nuo let the dragons go for a few minutes, then took them back, and violently put collars on them to suppress their power. It took some time to go back and forth. They took a plane back beyond the scheduled time, and it was past dinner time. It was time for supper. Most of the Western Alliance countries kept silent. Only Li country still arrogantly pointed at Long country for condoning Chung Nuo to undermine the security of other countries. Chung Nuo dared to do this today, and he would dare to instruct the Dark Elves to destroy other countries tomorrow. This was a sign of the prophecy. Chung Nuo was the culprit. Li country did not dare to attack the Dark Elves directly. The last time they attacked, they found that being ridiculed by the crowd had no effect at all. So they changed to a simpler target. The Eastern Alliance government told Chung Nuo not to worry about those public opinions. They were completely on Chung Nuo's side. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs pointed out that Li country was making up stories to provoke war. After Chung Nuo and his team landed for a while, and before they finished their supper, Li country suddenly issued a very strong statement. A group of natural elves descended on their territory. After the natural elves learned about the situation in this world, they were very sad about the fact that the people of the Eastern Alliance were leaning towards the Dark Elves. The people of the Eastern Alliance should not be deceived at all. The natural elves disclosed the history of the birth of the Dark Elves. The existence of the disaster was made public. And humans were warned that if they did not eliminate the Dark Elves, the world would be destroyed by them. Before the destruction, they would bring disasters, plunging the world into endless darkness. This time, the natural elves and the people of Li country learned from the previous tree people's lessons and directly released the video. In the video, the small natural elves, who were more human than the Dark Elves, spoke seriously about the terrible consequences of indulging the existence of the Dark Elves. For a while, many people hesitated. People will be deceived by their skin. The appearance of the natural elves is very confusing. If the Dark Elves are demons, then their image is like angels, seemingly representing light. The natural elves and the Dark Elves are in the same world. They should know the Dark Elves better. The tree people also said that the Dark Elves would destroy the world. Is this true? Everyone looks at the response of the Dark Elves. Chung Nuo represents the Dark Elves, discloses the history of the monster world, exposes the false hypocrisy of the natural elves. For example, the natural elves were the first race to start a war in the monster world. Under the banner of justice, they started endless wars in order to make all the higher alien races listen to them and recognize their status as the children of the world. They forcibly put the blame on the Dark Elves for the disaster. But according to historical records, disasters had already appeared in wars long before the first Dark Elf appeared. The history of the Dark Elves is only about 1,000 years. And even earlier than the disaster, he looked through the history of the monster world and felt that the disaster was attracted by the long-term wars among the various alien races in the monster world. The original Dark Elf was a natural elf. It was captured by the disaster. But it was not affected by the disaster and became an irrational, bloodthirsty monster. Instead, it became the world's first Dark Elf. The natural elves regarded it as a disaster and drove it away. The elders of each race predicted that the Dark Elves would destroy the world. But he felt that the reason for this prophecy was that all races were besieging the Dark Elves. The massacre stimulated the power of disaster in the Dark Elves. And in the bloody war, the disaster eventually awakened in the Dark Elves, turning them into bloodthirsty and irrational monsters. And then the predicted end of the world will appear. Chung Nua specifically said that many of the knife plots drawn in Sanhua comics happened in real history. And those tragedies of the Dark Elves really existed. The hostility in the Dark Elves is getting less and less now. They like everything in human society very much. Especially the junk food of Dragon Country. They can't destroy the world like this. Rather than caring about the prophecy that the Dark Elves will destroy the world, humans should pay more attention to whether the higher alien races such as natural elves will enslave humans first. Their attitude towards humans is not as good as that of the Dark Elves. At least until now, they have not taken up the butcher knife against humans. After Chung Nua's video was sent out, a lot of people's positions turned to this side again. Compared to the reasons for the prophecy, and the history of the monster world that he analyzed, the reasons that led many people to his position were, Chung Nua mentioned the most important thing that concerns human beings at present. Dragon Island appeared in the borders of the North Country and the Sakura Country, and the cities near the Dragon Island were reduced to ashes, and countless people were killed and injured. This kind of thing makes humans feel more real fear than the Dark Elves' destruction of the world. The prophecy of the destruction of the world is too illusory, but the death caused by the Dragon Clan is shocking. The people buried in the Western Alliance by the Eastern Alliance took the opportunity to incite ordinary people in the Western Alliance. Without the need for high-level aliens, they will all be oppressed to death by their own people. The managers above don't care about the powerful supernatural people in the country oppressing ordinary people. Instead, they condone it. The social order is getting more and more chaotic. And the price of food is getting higher and higher. Ordinary people at the bottom may die at the hands of their own people without the help of the higher aliens. The pawns buried by the Eastern Alliance in the Western Alliance added fuel to the flames, causing a wave of united resistance in many countries in the Western Alliance. For a time, the public opinion of the natural elves and the Lee Kingdom was completely suppressed. And more people believed in Chung Nua and the Dark Elves. Many people have read Songhua's comics. They thought they were fake and were heartbroken. Once they found out that they were adapted from real events, they felt even more sad. The knife was actually a real knife. After going through so many things, a normal person would have gone crazy long ago. The prophecy of the destruction of the world is not surprising. The natural elves were in a very bad mood. The human named Chung Nua somehow became a dark elf. And even a legendary one. He also portrayed the dark elves as the oppressed. The righteousness of the natural elves is so hypocritical. I am so angry. If most of their tribesmen had not come here, these natural elves would have attacked Dragon Country directly. The natural elves are so angry that they are gnashing their teeth. They don't look good to the weak humans who come to Lee Country. Stupid guys, they actually believe in the dark elves. In order to win the favor of these stupid and weak humans, those dark elves actually participate in human society's activities and create works for humans. It really brought shame to the superior alien race. The protesters in the Western Alliance were organized, and the government failed to suppress them immediately. The forced suppression caused a bigger riot. Some powerful people couldn't stand it and joined the wave of resistance. For a while, Lee Kingdom didn't care about the name of justice anymore, and was busy dealing with the riots in the Alliance. The natural elves were dormant, waiting for the tribe monsters to come in large numbers before dealing with the dark elves. Chung Nua used magic against magic, pull back public opinion. Fortunately, he was well prepared, and the cartoon Song Drew was indeed put to good use. A few days later, Li Yuan advanced. The law now has looser restrictions on high-level alien races. Li Yuan no longer suppresses power, and tries to advance to the long-awaited legendary level. It advanced in the Moonlight Jungle. Chung Nua and a group of dark elves watched it challenge the promotion from afar. The power of the law gathered, and unlike Xiang Yuelong's reaction when he advanced, when Li Yuan advanced, the sky was overcast, and thunderclouds appeared. The deafening rumble of thunder seemed to hit people's hearts, making people's heartbeats soar. The laws really restrict monsters from other worlds more than humans. Chung Nua looked at Li Yuan, who seemed to be in the immortal novels, and faced the falling thunder again and again. Pung Song's tail soon became charred, and the blood flowing from his body made him look like he was drenched in blood. Li Yuan's usual elegant temperament was gone, and his fiery red hair was messy. The fierce look was fully revealed. When breathing heavily, the sharp teeth were fully exposed, extremely terrifying. The dark elves were far away from it, whispering, a little worried. Law didn't look like he wanted Li Yuan to be promoted. Li Yuan should wait a little longer. Chung Nua looked at Li Yuan. His eyes were slightly depressed, ready to rescue the monster at any time. But Li Yuan gave Chung Nua a look from a distance. Chung Nua was slightly stunned. The end of his hair that was about to move The faint shadow of the chain disappeared. Li Yuan continued to fight against the thunder of the law. When he was almost turned into a blood monster, the thunderclouds in the sky finally began to disappear, and the law sent down the law fragments. Li Yuan forced himself to maintain consciousness and desperately devoured the power of the fragments sent down by the law. Its blood-red eyes were completely irrational, and it devoured its prey like a hungry beast. And its ferocity was great. When the law left, Li Yuan fell to the ground in a daze. A group of dark elves hurried over. Some took medicine. Some took bandages. Cheng Nua walked over quickly, making way for the emergency dark elves, and looked at Li Yuan from a few meters away. Li Yuan did not faint completely, but was very tired, and did not want to open his eyes. It let the tribe monsters move it, and opened its mouth to swallow the potion. After a while, Li Yuan opened his eyes, and a bright smile appeared on his messy face. I am now a legendary level. Quan Rong clenched his fist, and said excitedly, now we have 5 legendary tribe monsters. After watching Li Yuan's promotion, the advanced late dark elves were extremely excited. Many dark elves told Cheng Nua that they wanted to retreat. And Songhua also wanted to retreat. So it stopped updating. Fo Xiao, who was far away on the Nile Dragon Island in Ning country, also successfully advanced on the same day. After it was promoted, it sent a message to the Dark Elves communication group. And there was another cheer in the group. The day of punching other alien races and stepping on natural elves is getting closer. Many Dark Elves retreated. So Cheng Nu awakened some Dark Elves again. Within the tolerance range of the law, he awakened 300 Dark Elves this time. Chapter 104 Revenge. After Cheng Nu awakened 300 new Dark Elves, he brainwashed them according to the old rules to change their ideas, and then sent them to some cities in Dragon Country one after another. It had been a while since the natural elves told humans the prophecy. Most people still cared more about their current safety, and welcomed the Dark Elves to enter their cities. The Western Alliance was still in chaos, and the natural elves did not have enough tribe monsters, so it was quiet for the time being. Their silence is relative to Cheng Nu and the Dark Elves, but not to the Western Alliance at all. They are more powerful than the Tree People, and demand that the people of the Western Alliance obey them. The upper class of the Western Alliance is in a state of panic. Compared with the current order of the Eastern Alliance, many high-level officials of the Western Alliance think that the prophecies of the natural elves are unreliable. The laws are restricting monsters less and less. Li Yuan and Songhua finally waited for the day when the long-awaited thorn rabbits could come out of the eggs. When Cheng Nu went out to eat as usual today, he suddenly felt the movement of the thorny rabbits. 3 monster eggs left from under the dark elf mother tree, trying to come out. Cheng Nu paused. Xiang Yuelong also stopped. What's wrong? The 3 legendary monsters in the dark elf seem to be coming out. Cheng Nu said. You go eat first. Xiang Yuelong was alert. I'll wait for you. I'm not hungry now anyway. Is that so? Let's go to the park over there. Cheng Nu and Xiang Yuelong walked to the park. It was lunchtime now, and there were not many people in the park. A data map appeared in Cheng Nu's palm, and the passage opened, and 3 monster eggs flew out from it. This was not the first time Xiang Yuelong had seen these 3 monster eggs. Now when he saw them, he felt a sense of time trance. The monster egg that was completely black, with irregular dark purple gradient patterns, when he first saw it, was in Xiaodong City in June last year. Life hangs on a thread. At that time, a high-level sub-dragon monster could easily take their lives. Another purple and black egg appeared in Chanchuan City, accompanied by thorns and sharp, piercing laughter like hallucinations, and solved the threat of the soul-devouring King Wood. The 3rd dark blue monster egg, with the word death on the eggshell like a dark blue flame, appeared in Longhuan Town, Beijing North City, and the blue butterfly and the more monster-like Cheng Nu also left a deep impression on Xiang Yuelong. Xiang Yuelong was impressed, not to mention Cheng Nu, who has experienced more. These 3 monster eggs carry Li's deep memories, especially those illusions, and the line between life and death. The 3 monster eggs flew to the branches of a small tree nearby. With a few clicks, the 2 finally saw the appearance of the dark elves in the eggs. The black with purple eggshell is Long Yu. It is indeed a dark elf with dragon characteristics as the main body. The appearance is consistent with Cheng Nuo's imagination of the unruly character of dragons. The eyebrows are frivolous. The golden dragon pupils are as bright as golden gems under laser lights. But its wings exceeded Cheng Nuo's expectations. One side of Long Yu's wings is a normal dragon wing, and the other side is a bone dragon wing. There are wavy black lines on both sides of its cheeks, which spread all the way down to its body. The active clothing on its body has a very obvious metallic texture, and the overall look is like the incomplete armor in the game modeling, and it is still a wasteland style. Its limbs have smaller human features, and its palms are completely dragon claws. One side is normal, and the other side is a bone hand. The feet are also animal feet, covered with scales, and there is a thick and long tail behind it. The sense of oppression is very strong, and the whole body is full of momentum, and it exudes sharp aggression, and it feels like it wants to fight with people at any time. Chung Nua had seen the rough and blurry appearance of the thorny rabbit in the illusion before. Its black rabbit ears are completely upright, very conspicuous. The thorny rabbit's eyes are big, like rabbit eyes, and the blood-red color is very crystal clear and full, and it seems to contain chaotic malice naturally. The eyeliner is turned at the corners of the eyes, very evil, and the natural smile on the lips does not soften the evil, but adds a touch of morbid madness. Large patches of gorgeous and flamboyant rose patterns crawl from the neck to half of its face, interweaving beautiful, but weird patterns next to the corners of the eyes. The thorny rabbit is a typical dark elf that Chung Nua can't tell the gender of. It has no breasts, and its face is not feminine, but the active clothes on its body look like a skirt. The remaining dark butterfly is easy to recognize. It is a female dark elf. Chung Nua had seen it in its entirety in the illusion before, but looking at it again now, he still felt that this dark elf looked like a pale and beautiful porcelain doll. The blue fluorescent butterfly wings, like a skirt woven from butterflies. The long white hair that was longer than the calves. The empty eyes, like a lifeless doll on the window. Long Yu flew out of the eggshell first, flying around in the air with great interest, and said happily while flying, "Finally I can come out. I was really suffocated." Dark butterfly sat in the eggshell, looking around, with no emotional ups and downs. Thorn rabbit flew towards Chung Nua, looking at Chung Nua with blood-red ruby eyes, grinning and saying cheerfully, "I was worried that a human being who suddenly gained power and status would become arrogant and do something arrogant and stupid. It seems that I was overthinking. You are very suitable for this position." Thorn rabbit's voice is obviously not bad. It is actually very pleasant, like a stream. But Thorn rabbit's words give people a sharp and aggressive feeling, full of casual mockery and teasing. Li Yuan is its subordinate, and their personalities are somewhat similar, except that Li Yuan hides well, while Jitu doesn't hide at all, and does whatever he wants. Chung Nua smiled with muscle memory. "Thanks for the compliment." Jitu stood on Chung Nua's shoulder, and suddenly felt a strong gaze, and was very sensitive to emotions, and looked sideways doubtfully, and saw that the big guy was looking at him deeply, and it seemed that a lot of things were going through his mind. Jitu blinked, a playful look flashed in his eyes, and he burst into laughter, and the familiar crazy laughter swept Chingnua's eardrums again. Chingnua raised his hand to cover the ear near Jitu, and said, "Do you want to watch some new TV series to celebrate the hatching?" Long Yu crossed his arms in the air and said, "Why watch TV series when you are out? Give me some fried chicken burgers and happy water that Feng Xiao mentioned, and the milk tea that Li Yuan often mentioned." Chingnua. These words came out of Long Yu's mouth. It felt like Long Xiu's status had dropped a lot in an instant. But it didn't seem to feel that, and was in high spirits. Jitu looked at Xiang Yuelong with great interest, tilting his head and smiling. "My dear, you seem to have a lot to say? Just say it directly. It's not good for your health to keep it in. It will make you sick." Jitu's ending tone was raised, with maliciousness mixed with frivolous teasing. Chung Nua's eyelids jumped. Jitu was simply an enhanced version of Li Yuan. Xiang Yuelong pursed his lips slightly, ignoring its provocative joke, said, "I think they also need to go to school to study for a few days." The wings of the dark butterfly trembled slightly, and it used its mental power to amplify its voice without making any noise. "It's it, not them." The dark butterfly's voice was the same as its original image, light, without any emotional ups and downs. Long Yu flew down, said, "Don't pay attention to it, it's boring. So just ignore it." The thorn rabbit looked at Long Yu with horror, and the thorns on the active clothes, like a skirt, slowly crawled like snakes. The voice was still the same. "It's too much. Chung Nua and this guy are not like you. Chung Nua, although I think it is necessary to send you to school for a few days." Jitu flew away from Chung Nua. "I don't want to go to school, it's so boring." Li Yuan and Song Hua, who were far away in the moonlight jungle, sensed the unconcealed breath of their superiors, and were ecstatic, immediately put down their work, and ran to the source of the breath. The dark elves in Fushan City also flew to the place where they sensed the breath. People were puzzled to find that the idle dark elves suddenly flew fast. They thought that some new high-level monsters had descended, and hurried to a place where they felt safer. Many dark elves gathered in the park in a short while. They were very happy. Even the ominous and cold characteristics of the dark elves were reduced a little. Long Yu looked around and asked in confusion, "Where is Feng Xiao?" "Li Yuan, it is in the human country in the east. Nile Dragon Island appeared over there." Long Yu moved his hands. He showed a bloodthirsty smile. "I haven't exercised for a long time, Chung Nua. Can someone lead the way?" How dare Chung Nua let Long Yu, who had not yet accepted his ideas and brainwashing, leave alone? Quickly said, "Let's put the battle aside for now. There are more interesting things in the human world than fighting." Hearing the key words, G2 looked over. "Let's eat what you mentioned just now." Hong Guang was curious. What did Lord Long Yu mention just now? Fried chicken, burgers, and the like. The dark elves immediately chattered excitedly and recommended it. "That one is really delicious. Lord Long Yu has great taste. The fried chicken at the chicken shop is the best. I think the hamburgers and fries at Maggie are the best." Li Yuan actively recommended it. "Lord G2, try the milk tea. You will feel super happy after drinking it." G2 has been listening to Li Yuan in the egg, and is very curious. Chung Nua's eyelids jumped, and said, "Li Yuan, milk tea is not a main meal. You haven't been drinking it secretly recently?" Li Yuan turned around and smiled cutely. "No." Chung Nua didn't believe a word it said. Xiang Yuelong looked at Chung Nua, who was surrounded by a bunch of dark elves, opened his mouth. "Chung Nua, are you hungry?" Chung Nua turned his head and looked at him. "Yeah, just take them to eat." Xiang Yuelong, "You want fried chicken for lunch?" Chung Nua was silent for a while, and said, "Not impossible. It's better than letting the current Long Yu go out to fight." He remembered something, sent a text message to Ouyang Di. After sending it, he said to Long Yu and the others, "Come with me, I will take you to try human food. Although junk food is unhealthy, it is the food that dark elves will fall in love with the fastest. I will take them to try some energy bombs and other foods later." Songhua was beside Ming Dai with a cold face, and looked a little happy. "Master Ming Dai, if you don't want to squeeze with them, I can pack it for you separately." Ming Dai looked at the large group leaving. After thinking for a while, he flew out of the eggshell and followed the main force. Songhua saw Ming Dai following him, and was a little surprised. It was rare that Lord Ming Dai was willing to go to a place with many monsters. When Long Yu and the other three came out of the eggshell, the monitoring machines of the research institutes in various places were frantically alarmed. They thought that some high-level alien race had descended again. But soon the research institutes in various places received the news sent by Han Sheng. It was not a new high-level alien race, but 3 legendary dark elves had appeared. Legendary level, 3 appeared at once. Humans took a deep breath. People in other countries received the news one after another. Many countries in the Western Alliance were waiting to see the show, naturally. All elves were like this. After 3 legendary levels appeared, dark elves would definitely reveal some of their true nature. They were looking forward to the people in the Eastern Alliance being the same as them. Including the 2 who were promoted before, the dark elves now have 5 legendary levels. On the human side, only Xiang Yuelong was promoted to the legendary level. Chung Nua's words, "Neither side counts, and if a fight breaks out, who will support whom?" The natural elves and tree people received the news, and they were envious and jealous, and they were itching with hatred. Why the law is so tolerant of the dark elves? If this continues, the dark elves will take away most of the abundant law fragment power in this world, and also take away a large number of legendary seats. It's scary to think that the dark elves will step on the heads of other tribes and show off their power. By then, who can stop the dark elves from turning into a curse that destroys the world? The high-level aliens, who couldn't contact the monsters of another world, were in a panic. But there was nothing they could do. The groups of dark elves were very conspicuous on the street. People looked at them curiously and boldly asked the dark elves next to them, "Let's go for lunch." Some people saw the dragon, the thorn rabbit, and the dark butterfly that they had never seen before. Many people recognized that they were the dark elves that appeared in the Songhua comics, although they only appeared a few times in daily life. Their images were impressive. Too many gazes made the thorn rabbit very irritable. The rose pattern on its body floated like water ripples, and its blood-red gem eyes were dark. Li Yuan was beside it, whispering, "Master Thorn Rabbit, these humans are quite good, without any ill intentions, although most of them are very weak, but they provide emotional value in food, drink and entertainment." Emotional value? Li Yuan explained to the Thorn Rabbit. The Thorn Rabbit was thoughtful. Although the 3 of them just came out today, Chung Nua showed them some human movies and TV series for a while. They also understand some things about human society. Although humans are weak, they have created many strange things. When Thorn Rabbit came out, he found the changes in the monsters. The ominous bloody hostility in them has been reduced a lot. In human terms, they are relaxed and in a good mental state. Long Ye experienced the enthusiasm of humans for the first time. He was a little uncomfortable. Those eyes were weird, but there was no disgust from other races, which was rare. The monster seemed to have adapted. Song Hua followed Ming Dai nervously, worried that Ming Dai would hate being in a crowded environment. Li Yuan looked at it and laughed softly. Song Hua, are you a nani? Song Hua swung his tail over. Li Yuan also swung his tail. The tails of the two dark elves collided hard, spurring a strong wind. Song Hua, Ming Dai said lightly. Song Hua pursed his lips slightly. I'm sorry. Ming Dai looked at it. You become much more lively. Song Hua was stunned. No. You have all changed a lot. Ming Di's voice was cold and ethereal, but Song Hua could hear a hint of relief and happiness. The large group soon arrived at Majiji, and the people eating inside looked at the large number of dark elves pouring in with surprise, and talked excitedly. Long Yu took the lead, flew to the counter, and said with interest, I have seen this TV series. Is it right to order food here? The clerk was so attracted by Long Yu's cute appearance that he couldn't help but raise his voice. Yes. Yes, are you the new dark elf? Long Yu felt that this human smile was strange. Although it had no ill intentions, it was inexplicably cheesy. G2 looked at the screen beside him. Clicking curiously, Li Yuan was telling him how to click. Xiang Yuelong and Cheng Nua were at the side, and did not intervene for the time being. Xiang Yuelong suddenly felt relieved. G2 and Long Yu did not show any sign of poaching. Compared to Cheng Nua, they were more interested in human things, like a child playing with toys. As for the dark butterfly, it has always been very free, indifferent and cold. Xiang Yuelong didn't think it would want to poach people. Xiang Yuelong said to Cheng Nua, they are so easy to please. Cheng Nua smiled. You only think so now. Cheng Nua had just finished speaking when he heard a click. The self-service ordering machine in front of him went black, and a hole was poked in the middle by the finger of the Thorn Rabbit. Xiang Yuelong said silently, I didn't say anything just now. Forget it. I could afford the compensation now anyway. Now Cheng Nua doesn't even look at the price when he goes out to buy things. Money has become a simple number to him. The Eastern Alliance gave him a large bonus when he went to the north to solve the hidden dangers on Dragon Island last time. With the bonuses and wages, Cheng Nua's monthly income is very considerable. The Dark Elves are making a fuss here from noon to night, and the Coke is constantly refilled. Fortunately, they are small in size. Otherwise there would not be so many Dark Elves. Otherwise, there would not be so much Coke to refill in a short time. The evening news in Fushan City reported that the Dark Elves held a party in the Magigi store. When the news reached the Western Alliance, many people in the Western Alliance, who were expecting the Dark Elves to reveal their true nature, turned green. They were actually playing with toys in the children's area. Aren't they the incarnation of the ominous curse that would destroy the world as predicted? Many people in the Western Alliance felt very unbalanced, especially the upper-level officials of the Li Kingdom. This imbalance occurred after the mermaids appeared in large numbers at sea. This time, the mermaids appeared in large numbers. Both the Western Alliance and the Eastern Alliance appeared. The mermaids could go ashore. In the Western Alliance, the mermaids drove away many natives by slaughtering them. They did not give them any chance to communicate. The natural elves in the Western Alliance did not show any intention to stop or persuade the mermaids. There are much fewer mermaids than the tribe monsters now. And this group of humans did not believe the prophecy that the Dark Elves would destroy the world. The natural elves did not want to show up at all. They just told humans not to get close to the seashore. The mermaids would not attack. They were marking their territory. Neither did the tree men. The mermaids were very ferocious. In the process of fighting for territory, they would definitely kill them as well. On the Eastern Alliance side, as soon as the waves of the mermaids' arrival were detected at sea, the Dark Elves from all directions immediately rushed over. Humans were moved by their sacrifices for humans, but only Cheng Nua knew that. They had finally found an opportunity to fight in a group, and were afraid that if they went too late, they would not even get a single enemy monster. This beautiful misunderstanding is fine. Cheng Nua does not intend to explain. Cheng Nua followed the Dark Elves of Fushan City to Linhai City. This time, Ouyang Di was not called. A lucky Dark Elf was randomly selected to take photos. After more than half a year, he returned to Linhai City. Cheng Nua flew in the air, looking down at the city where he had lived for almost 2 years. Linhai City now has no ordinary people living in it, and has completely become a strategic frontline base. The high-rise buildings are empty, and collapsed buildings and ruins after battles can be seen everywhere, telling people that many monsters have descended on this city. Xiang Yuelong looked at the coastline. Here they come. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of dark elves rushed over, so fast, even raised the wind, and blew his curly hair. Long Yu rushed in first. It felt the breath of another legendary mermaid. Abelpa had just come out of the space channel, and a small cannonball came towards him, and it immediately penetrated the water shield it had hastily built, hit it in the abdomen, making it spit out blood, and the whole monster flew backwards and crashed into the sea. Lord Abelpa, where are you looking? Your opponent is me. Hongwang kicked excitedly. The octopus's feet emerged from the water. Hongwang, this is my prey. The robbed mermaid? There were at least 300 dark elves at the scene, and about 100 mermaids were stunned. What's going on? Completely at a disadvantage, many mermaids wanted to retreat into the deep sea, but he was entangled by several dark elves. Abelpa sent several legendary auras, and his heart sank. He looked at the 4 legendary dark elves around him with doubt and uncertainty, and a legendary native creature. Long Yu, Thorn Rabbit, and Li Yuan, who was promoted to the legendary level. And another dark elf, who had never been seen, but was now also a legendary level. Abelpa was trembling. He didn't expect that after all the hardships, he finally got through this time. It turned out to be a dead end. Chung Nuo stopped Long Yu. Look at this legendary mermaid. The breath is very familiar. The heart, the fatal wounds on the head are aching. What are you doing? Long Yu was unhappy. Li Yuan, Lord Long Yu, Abelpa appeared once in this world before, but he only had one arm. Xiang Yuelong's expression was gloomy, and his hostility caused the wind and air around him to change drastically, and many parts of his body turned into monsters. Jita laughed bluntly. Stupid, Abelpa is the mermaid who killed Chung Nuo once before. TSK. Longya pounced on the thorny rabbit. The thorny rabbit's blood-red eyes darkened. It sneered, and suddenly smiled wildly. Several thorns flew out of its body. Abelpa looked ugly. Longya and thorny rabbit fought recklessly in front of it. It was obviously mocking and despising it. Abelpa wanted to attack them, but was stopped by a strange dark elf and native creatures. Get out of the way. Chung Nuo stood in front of it, and said, You seem to have forgotten me. It's really annoying. Abelpa felt that Chung Nuo's breath was somewhat familiar, but mostly unfamiliar. It attacked Chung Nuo impatiently, thinking about the escape route. 5 legendary elves. It had no chance of winning. There were still many dark elves around, and it was unknown how many of the monsters that followed it today would escape. Xiang Yuelong rushed over, without a pause, and attacked Abelpa with brutal and terrifying force. Abelpa raised his hand to condense the water escape, and a water tornado also appeared around him. This trick won't work this time. Chung Nuo smiled, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. The silver-gray chain extending from the end of his hair was very long, and it pierced directly into each waterspout like an arrow. The mental power of both sides collided, and the waterspout could not be maintained. It exploded in a short while, and water splashed everywhere. Abelpa remembered and looked at Chung Nuo in disbelief. This dark elf was a native creature of the world that was killed by it that day. Chapter 105 Solution. Why do humans killed by it turn into dark elves? The pale-skinned mermaid stared at Chung Nuo. He seemed to have a close relationship with the dark elves around him. This was definitely not a coincidence. It was tricked. Before Abelpa could ask again, it was kicked hard by the human who was close to it. The arm it raised to block trembled slightly, and it felt a dull pain. It didn't wait for it to recover. The violent blows continued to fall. The attack speed was dense and fast. This made Abelpa, the merman, secretly frightened. How could the physical fitness of humans in this world be so strong? In terms of physical strength alone, among the 6 advanced alien races, the dragon race ranked first. Merman and dwarf were tied for second. The excellent physical fitness actually felt strenuous under the attack of this human. The chain at the end of Chung Nuo's hair entangled Abelpa, wrapped up its arm that wanted to fight back, and pulled it back fiercely. Abelpa could only raise his fishtail fan to hit Xiang Yuelong's fist. The wide fishtail splashed wet water droplets. Chung Nuo took out the Zhankong fan. He stroked the uneven fan body because of the lines on the Zhankong fan. He sighed. It feels better to end it with this. The Zhankong fan made a buzzing sound. Then a swift sound of breaking through the air sounded. The Zhankong fan spun and attacked Abelpa. A large number of chains moved forward parallel to the Zhankong fan. Xiang Yuelong glanced at Chung Nuo's attack. He was still not satisfied, and kicked him hard with his knee. Abelpa's face was fierce. A rapidly rotating aqua ball of light appeared in the palm of his right hand, pressing it towards Xiang Yuelong. At the same time, his other hand spread a water curtain at the place where the air-cutting fin came from. Seawater gushed up from the sea's surface below. The water curtain, covered with spiritual power, became extremely solid. When the air-cutting fan collided with it, it made a sound of a hard, solid collision. The chain changed its course in midair, circumventing the water curtain and attacking. Xiang Yuelong leaned back almost 90 degrees, avoiding Abelpa's hand, raising his foot, and straightening his calf to kick towards Abelpa's waist. A water dragon emerged from the sea, biting Xiang Yuelong completely, and rushed into the sea. Chung Nua's chain bypassed the water curtain and approached Abelpa. The air-cutting fan did not collide with the water curtain head-on, but directly passed through the space. The sound of the rotation and cutting the air was very loud. Abelpa opened his palm, and the sharp mermaid fingers had extremely sharp nails on the fingertips. It opened the water curtain in front of it again. Xiang Yuelong flew out of the sea, and the dragon claws grabbed Abelpa. The chain was filled with blood mist. Corroding the water curtain, Abelpa was stunned. The water curtain was pierced by a chain, which directly pierced his shoulder. Xiang Yuelong's dragon claws behind him also tore open the flesh and blood on his back, leaving horrible scars. The intensive and swift attacks from both sides made Abelpa gradually unable to resist. The wounds on his body increased, and he was increasingly at a disadvantage, and it was very difficult to cope with it. Chung Nua saw that Abelpa wanted to escape. He pulled the corner of his mouth, raised his hand, and the chain at the end of his hair jingled and formed a barrier in the surrounding space. Damn it! Abelpa's pale, three-dimensional face became increasingly bloodless, anxiety in his heart, and fear. Other mermaids might not die, but this mermaid must die. Chung Nua narrowed his eyes slightly. The space over there was blocked by layers of chains, and the situation inside could not be seen clearly. The dark elves outside did not pay any attention to it at all, and only chased their prey. Although Chung Nua said to try to keep them alive, it was their own business that some mermaids did not hold on, and they had already shown mercy. The Alliance army stationed in Lenhai City, and the Special Armed Forces personnel watched the battle situation from across the sea. Many people raised their hands and looked. This fight is really exciting. Yeah, there's no pressure at all. I heard that the last time the mermaids appeared in Mahai City, the armed personnel of Mahai City fought very hard, and some places were flooded by the tsunami caused by the mermaids. Didn't Chung Nu make a contract with the Dark Elves after that? Speaking of which, don't you think the Dark Elves' actions are a bit violent? War is either you die or I live. If you are not cruel to your enemies, you are cruel to yourself. Is that so? The image filter that was planted before made many people automatically find excuses for the Dark Elves, who were excited about the team building. They are so small, what's wrong with being a little cruel when fighting? Longya and Thorn Rabbit were fighting among themselves, and the fight was no more intense than other Dark Elves fighting mermaids. It was so fierce that it seemed like a life and death battle, and both Dark Elves were covered in wounds. Li Yuan said from the side, "Come on, Lord Thorn Rabbit." Long Yu threw a fireball at it. TSK. Shut up. The mocking laughter of Thorn Rabbit echoed in the air, and the tone was sarcastic. Long Yu, you are so boring. People with bad personalities have no right to criticize me. Long Yu held the idea of killing Thorn Rabbit, and raised his hands high, palm to palm, and a huge fireball appeared in the middle. Before it threw the huge fireball, the space enclosed by the silver-gray chain suddenly exploded. Long Yu was stunned. The fireball in the palm gradually dissipated. It looked at the world with a puzzled look on its face. Many Dark Elves also looked over. Most of the subdued mermaids were pale and palpitating. Lord Abelpa. Two figures flew out from the huge smoke. Cough, cough. Chung Nua kept coughing, choking on the smoke. He raised his hand and waved it in front of him to disperse the smoke. Xiang Yuelong, who was standing next to him, also had some traces of being smoked by the smoke. He wiped his face with the back of his hand and felt a sense of bad luck. He actually blew himself up. Chung Nua muttered, "TSK." Xiang Yuelong was not very happy, because he was not able to kill the merman himself. G2 flew over, looked at the two of them and smiled, a bit embarrassed. Chung Nua coughed lightly, ignoring G2's voice that would raise blood pressure, and said, "How is the situation?" G2 crossed his arms, lying in the air, and said lazily, "It's almost all resolved. Right? If you spare their lives, they won't be grateful to you." Chung Nua glanced sideways. "I don't want their gratitude. I want the disaster not to be attracted here. Thorny Rabbit pondered for a moment, and spread his hands and said, It's you who makes the decision anyway. Chung Nua called Li Yuan over, and said to it, You are responsible for putting collars on those mermaids. And you call some tribesmen around to deal with them. Li Yuan, no problem. It glanced at Long Yu, and saw that Long Yu didn't intend to continue fighting with Thorny Rabbit. Only then did he concentrate on dealing with the things Chung Nua had told him to do. The mermaids were very surprised that the Dark Elves did not kill them directly, but they were not very happy after the accident. They wanted to keep them as slaves. The power was suppressed but not without power. Several angry mermaids wanted to fight back, but were easily suppressed by the Dark Elves. Li Yuan sighed, and said with disdain, If it weren't for Master Chung Nua saying that your lives were related to the disaster, I would have killed you long ago. It's you who are responsible for the disaster. Li Yuan crossed his arms, and pouted, You are no different from those simple-minded but strong-limbed guys of the Dragon Clan. The mermaids were furious, and wanted to rush over and beat it up. Li Yuan released a legendary pressure, and his disdainful eyes swept over the mermaids, whose bodies were stiffened by his mental pressure. Suddenly, Li Yuan saw Chung Nua touching Xiang Yuelong's waist, and the corners of his lips bent down. After dealing with the business, Chung Nua was thinking about other things. He flew to Xiang Yuelong, touched Xiang Yuelong's waist frivolously, and teased, Your waist is very flexible. The bending movement just now was very smooth. Xiang Yuelong's body was tense, but this was outside. He grabbed Chung Nua's hand with his undischarged dragon claw. We've done more intimate things. Chung Nua laughed, and teased in a low voice. You're still shy. Xiang Yuelong held Chung Nua's hand tightly, for fear that Chung Nua would do something shocking here again. There's someone on the coast. The thorn rabbit flew over lying sideways, folded its arms and smiled playfully, with some shark teeth exposed. Hey, young man, if you're so boring, you'll be easily abandoned by your lover. As it spoke, the black rabbit ears trembled, the thorns were like snakes, climbing towards Chung Nua's arm. Xiang Yuelong grabbed the thorns with his other hand, and said in a low voice, I think you should go to school right now. Puff. The thorn rabbit laughed. If Chung Nua didn't like you, he should choose one of the three of us. Things like feelings are not important. It's enough to get along. The most important thing is the strong combination of bloodline power. Xiang Yuelong said in a serious tone, Feelings are very important. G2 spread his hands. I don't care, but many tribe monsters react strongly, you better be careful. Chung Nua pinched its neck and said, Tomorrow I will send you to experience the human school. G2 pouted, I won't go. It said, breaking free from Chung Nua's hand. He said with a smile, You're here to protect me now? Before Chung Nua could speak, G2 suddenly touched his stomach and said to Li Yuan, I'm hungry. Li Yuan, who was cleaning up the mess, flew over immediately. I prepared the snacks and put them in the kitchen. You can go directly to the dining table. I've told the Darkianite to bring the snacks to you when they see you. G2 looked at Chung Nua, and the meaning was obvious, asking him to open the passage. Chung Nua, you won't keep your tribe connected to my ability for the rest of your life. Right? Becoming a door-like existence feels very troublesome. Long Yu flew over and said, No, after all the floating islands are completed, you can release it from that space, but the space on your palm can still connect to our clan land. The thorn rabbit plunged into the data map displayed on Chung Nua's palm. Long Yu was shocked, and he disliked it very much. There is no fighting here. I want to go back. Chung Nua called Ouyang Di before and asked him to prepare a complete set of esports equipment and game software, in order to consume Long Yu's restless fighting spirit of looking for people to fight everywhere. Now this strategy is very successful, but there is a problem. Long Yu is getting closer to the internet-addicted teenager. The mermaids in the Eastern Alliance's waters were patrolled by the Dark Elves, and they were all packed up and locked up temporarily, and they couldn't make any waves. The mermaids who landed in the Western Alliance next door have already circled a piece of land. They belong to different mermaid populations, and neither side knows each other's situation for the time being. After the mermaids appeared, the dwarves soon appeared. As usual, Chung Nua only dealt with those in the Eastern Alliance and those close to the Eastern Alliance. He ignored those far away, and forced those close to wear collars to suppress their power. He still relied on group fights. Some new dragons also descended on Dragon Island, and the Dark Elves left behind immediately attacked. At present, the situation of the Dark Elves is very good. The natural elves in the Western Alliance are gritting their teeth and have nightmares in the middle of the night. After a while, Han Sheng researched the secret of hatching dragon eggs. Chung Nuo took the secret and went to negotiate with the dragons. Chapter 106 Negotiation. Han Sheng worked overtime to figure out the conditions for hatching dragon eggs and the reasons for the death of eggs. The 2 dragon eggs in the Research Institute are currently in a healthy state. The dragon egg that was about to die is gradually getting better. It will hatch after a while. Although humans do not have the natural strength advantage of higher alien races, they have scientific advantages. Chung Nuo went to the Research Institute to find Han Sheng. Han Sheng took out a file bag from the safe and gave it to him. This contains all the factors that affect the hatching of dragon eggs. You are in a hurry. I worked overtime to make it for you. These 2 dragon eggs belong to me. Right? Han Sheng had dark circles under his eyes, but his excitement made his pale and sallow face look energetic after working overtime. These are dragon eggs. If Chung Nuo hadn't proposed this exchange, he wouldn't have worked so hard day and night, and he even had a lot of white hair. Han Sheng stroked the dragon eggs with pleasure. Chung Nuo looked at Han Sheng exuding a suspicious maternal glow, with a strange look in his eyes. He said, of course, I always keep my word. Although he was originally fleecing the dragon tribe, Chung Nuo thought. He opened the sealed file bag, took out the documents inside, and browsed slowly. Han Sheng held the dragon egg, smiling excitedly and lovingly. And suddenly, he looked up in confusion and asked, Why don't you see Xiang Yuelong again? Chung Nuo, he and I are not conjoined twins. Why are you so confused that he is not with me? If it were Yuelong on the way, he was called by Anmo to compete again. Recently, Anmo feels that he is also in a bottleneck period. He will soon break through the advanced middle stage and advance to the late stage. Yes, it's almost there. Chung Nuo looked at Han Sheng. I wonder if this researcher, who is currently specializing in the advancement of ability users, has done any new experiments on Anmo. Speaking of which, is it okay for Anmo not to return to Jingbei City now? Isn't he the leader of Group 2? Han Sheng, it's okay. I want him to transfer his position here. Switch with Miao Chenxi from the first group. Hearing Miao Chenxi's name, Chung Nuo remembered the cheating curse, and wondered how she was doing now, and said casually, Does Team Leader Miao have any objections? No, I'm happy instead. Han Sheng remembered something, and smiled wider. She said she didn't have any favorite targets here, and wanted to go to Jingbei City to have a look. While talking to Han Sheng, Chung Nuo browsed the documents in his hand, and finished reading them in a short while. He is indeed a genius in the professional scientific research field. Chung Nuo was very satisfied, and turned to leave. He went to the training ground to call Xiang Yuelong back. Xiang Yuelong was helping an MO adjust his condition. An MO was the type who was suitable for promotion in battle, and needed to find a suitable person to help him train. Chung Nuo greeted an MO. An MO uncontrollably took a look at Chung Nuo's restrained black crow feathers, and watched him and Xiang Yuelong leave together. He wondered in his heart whether Chung Nuo would feel a foreign body when he slept at night. Whether he slept on his back or on his side, it feels like the wings behind you will be pressed down. Unless you sleep on your stomach. But sleeping on your stomach is uncomfortable. Right? And MO seems calm and steady, standing like a pine tree. But in fact, his mind is constantly scattered, and he is absent-minded while standing. Xiang Yuelong followed Chung Nuo out of the Research Institute and asked curiously, What does the hatching of dragon eggs have to do with? Chung Nuo thought about the contents of the file bag and said something casually. It's just basic conditions such as temperature and humidity. And nutrition. It needs to be watered with nutrient solution. Han Sheng specially extracted it from the Rubik's Cube plants. Adding all sorts of other things, it's quite complicated to hatch a dragon egg. It's a pity that the dragon race hasn't been wiped out yet. Without a professional hatching environment, it's all up to Dragon Island to struggle for survival. It's all up to fate to hatch. Chung Nuo sent a message to the Dark Elves group saying that he was going to Nile Dragon Island to negotiate the conditions for hatching dragon eggs. Many Dark Elves wanted to follow him, especially Long Yu. Its reason was very righteous. It was going to visit its subordinate Foshan. Chung Nuo really couldn't refuse this reason, so he could only take it with him, and also take the thorn rabbit with him. According to his observation, Long Shi would first attack the thorn rabbit when he felt like it. Perhaps it was because the thorn rabbit had been attracting hatred for many years, which left a deep impression on Long Shi as a sandbag. The thorn rabbit was not interested, it was more interested in human food recently, and the legend of its big eater was left in Fushan City. It ate many times its own size in one meal, not knowing where it would go. The humans watching were very shocked. However, It was still interested in having the opportunity to ridicule and laugh at the distressed dragons. Chung Nua had a plan. After the plane landed, he went directly to the local restaurant in Sakura Country and packed a lot of food, all of which were famous specialties of Sakura Country, such as sushi, ramen, etc. He put them in the data map, and when the thorn rabbit opened its mouth, he would deliver it to make it shut up. The thorn rabbit had a very strong appetite, and Chung Nua knew it well. The government building of Ingwa was destroyed by 4 dragons transported by Chung Nua from a distance before, and it has not been rebuilt yet. They dared not say anything to Chung Nua, but when they knew that Chung Nua and his team were coming, they pretended to be dead and didn't know. Chung Nua didn't expect them to welcome them as warmly as the northern government did. After packing a lot of food at each meal point, he took Long Yu, who wanted to play video games, to Nile Dragon Island. While Chung Nua was packing food, Xiang Yuelong had nothing to do and went to a bookstore nearby. When he came out, his heartbeat was a little unstable. The people of Sakura also found a lot of information about dark elves on the internet, but most of them have not been seen in person, except for the citizens who happened to be around the Sakura government building. Although the Sakura government is in the Western Alliance camp and stands on the side of natural elves, the people of Sakura unconsciously have a good impression of the mini and cute humanoid dark elves. There are no ugly dark elves. They are all handsome men and beautiful women. Some of them can't tell the gender, but they are also good-looking. More importantly, they are not bad-mannered. Just like ordinary humans walking on the street, the dark elves stayed on the street for only a short while. After the merchants in the shops packed food for Chung Nua, they followed Chung Nua to Nile Dragon Island. There were many street photos of dark elves on the internet in Sakura Country. Some were taken openly, and some were taken from candid angles. The people in Sakura Country were divided into 2 groups online. One group radically scolded those who were deceived by the dark elves, and the other group of passers-by scolded back. The previous mermaid incident was witnessed by everyone. How many people did the mermaids kill in the Western Alliance? A few more people died in the Eastern Alliance. Although there is an information cocoon, many people climbed over the wall and got a lot of information suppressed by the government. Chung Nua, Xiang Yuelong and the Dark Elves flew directly from the shore of the passing island to Nile Dragon Island. The Dark Elves on Nile Dragon Island, led by Feng Xiao, were ready to welcome them on the shore. The giant dragons on Dragon Island who were tormented by the Dark Elves guessed from their behavior and words that there might be more Dark Elves coming, or the type of leaders. Each of them had a gloomy face, and cursed in their hearts that they would be killed by the law. The number of dragons on Nile Dragon Island was not the same as before. Several more groups had descended recently. They were all beaten up and unable to resist. They were put on collars, and had to listen to Feng Xiao's damn Dark Elves civilized and barbaric brainwashing every day. There was also a group of Dark Elves who showed off and tormented them in different ways every day. They couldn't live like this. On the cliff, Andy squinted at the sea. There were more than a dozen dragons around him. Andy, what do you think we should do now? Our entire race is coming here in batches, and those Dark Elves have completely controlled us. We are just sitting back and waiting for something to happen. It's not just sitting back and waiting for something to happen. It's sitting back and waiting for something to happen. It doesn't matter. Those Dark Elves are so proud of what they are here. They can even show off the culture of weak creatures like humans. But human fried chicken smells so good. And pizza. Don't be fooled by their sugar-coated bullets. Sugar-coated bullets are a human term. Right? Shut up. You are the only one who is nitpicking. Nutpicking too. The 2 dragons wrestled with each other. Andy's eyelids twitched, his pupils were numb, the word finish seemed to be written on its face. It was a little confused. The group of Dark Elves had really become strange recently, although their personalities were still very bad, but they were different from the twisted and bloody feeling they had before. Everyone was talking about civilization and weird things. And their behavior and words were all very strange. Coffee, afternoon tea, TV series, internet, and other strange and charming words made Andy more confused. The capsule machine had not even appeared in this world for a year. Even if the Dark Elves came to this world with the capsule machine from the beginning, the changes were too fast. The twisted curse and hostility on them were slowly disappearing. Although they were still air dragons, they also made something called an open-air curtain show them the products of human civilization. Don't mention it, those movies and TV shows are pretty good. Popcorn smells good, but the Dark Elves won't give it to them. Unless they surrender, the dragons won't surrender, so no dragon has ever had popcorn. The two monsters behind him were fighting. And there were some other monsters beside them making a fuss. Andy squinted his eyes, looking at the sea in the distance. Some small black dots appeared somewhere. Looking carefully, it was the dark elf that led the last time. Dark elves transform from native humans in this world. Andy suddenly widened his eyes. He saw two dark elves that looked like Dragon Fong and Thorn Rabbit. The auras were very similar. They had no intention of hiding themselves at all. They released their mental power fluctuations in their auras carelessly. The dragons also noticed it. The two fighting dragons stopped their actions. The dragons looked serious and unbelievable. Can Dragon Fong and Thorn Rabbit move freely in this world now? The legendary level in their tribe is still stuck by the law. It's so unfair. Feng Xiao even reached the legendary level in this world not long ago. Li Yuan, who came from afar, also had the legendary aura. The dragons were jealous and envious. Why didn't the law block this group of cursed incarnations? The dragons were talking angrily. The main point was that the law of this world was too unfair. The group of dark elves landed on the island. And there was also a local human. Chung Nua folded his wings and looked around. After Feng Xiao nodded and shouted at Chung Nua, then it flew towards Long Xia. A smile appeared on its capable face. Lord Long Xia, you can come out now, it said, glancing at Chung Nua, and then at Xiang Yuelong. Long Xia didn't notice the change in its sight at all. Its golden dragon eyes were bright, looking around Dragon Island eagerly. Its fighting spirit could not be concealed. Feng Xiao sighed silently. Lord Long Xia is still like this, unconventional. Feng Xiao really didn't want to use the words well-developed limbs and simple-minded to describe Long Xia. Although he didn't want to admit it, but Lord Longya did inherit the dragon race's war-loving mind. Chung Nua brought Jitu to Longyu and said, "We are not here to fight this time. Longyu, you have to restrain yourself." Longyu saw Jitu and heard what Chung Nua said. His expression was gloomy. His golden dragon pupils glanced at Jitu a few times, and he folded his arms and raised his head in annoyance. Jitu looked at Chung Nua. Chung Nua took out a box of sushi that he had just packed. Jitu pouted, took the box, and started to eat the food inside. Xiang Yuelong looked at the top of the cliff and said to Chung Nua, "That one seems to be the leader of the dragon clan." "Right?" He was looking at Andy. Chung Nua also looked over and amplified his voice with his mental power. "Dragon over there. I want to discuss something about dragon eggs with you." "Dragon eggs? Damn it. That guy wants to threaten us with dragon eggs again. How despicable. Can't we get through? There are only 2 healthy dragon eggs in this batch." After so long, the dragon eggs left the island again. Now I don't know what happened to the 2 healthy dragon eggs. Chung Nua said again, "We have found out the conditions for hatching dragon eggs of your tribe. If everything goes well in the future, as long as you give the dragon eggs to humans for breeding, if there are no congenital deficiencies and accidents, each dragon egg will hatch a healthy baby dragon." The dragons could not believe what they heard, and were very shocked. Everyone looked at each other. This was different from what they imagined. Why is it so? Peaceful? Andy, shall we go over there? Andy's dragon wings suddenly spread out, and he said in a low voice, "Let's go over there, and see what tricks the guy is trying to play." Andy was the first to fly over, and the dragons behind him followed. There were also dragons in other places. They didn't come over, but stood in various places, observing the development of the coast, and the sight of the pairs of dragon pupils was very substantial. This sense of oppression was just a tickle to most dark elves, not to mention Chung Nua and other legendary ones. "Hey, what do you want to do?" Andy walked back and forth a few steps. His huge body turned flexibly, but his movements exposed his inner anxiety. Longyu gritted his molars, his hands itched, and wanted to do something. "After I handed the dragon egg to humans, they researched the conditions for hatching dragon eggs. I think this condition, in exchange for your peaceful coexistence with humans. Is it too much?" Chapter 107. Bow your head. Andy didn't believe the conditions were so simple. Its vertical pupils were cold. "Are you also enslaving the hatched dragons?" The dragon grinned. Its sharp and cold teeth were exposed. Its breath turned into smoke and swirled around the dragon's head. "I've already said that you have a big misunderstanding of the dark elves." Chung Nua's hair moved without wind. His smile remained the same, but the surrounding momentum changed. The mental power fluctuations of the creatures, one large and one small, with huge differences in size, collided. A strong wind blew up. The dragon was defeated first. Its claws retreated a step. It looked unwilling, but also secretly afraid. "You must know one thing first. I didn't kill you, not because I'm kind, but because I was afraid of bringing disaster." Chung Nua smiled brightly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. The muscle memory of the previous human state still existed in the dark elf's body. Although I'm not kind, I'm not a bloodthirsty person, it's best to live in peace. I have looked up your history. You have been in civil war. It is probably useless to negotiate with you in a gentle way. So, several chains quickly extended from Chung Nua's hair behind him. The legendary mental power fluctuations were completely released. In an instant, a strong storm was shaken. The vegetation was tilted and swayed by the strong wind. The dead branches and leaves were blown away by the wind. The debris on the coast was cleared. The dark elves cheered, and the aura on their bodies turned into a state of combat readiness. Long Yu was even more eager to try. The golden vertical pupils were extremely bright, but this brilliance was extremely cold. The giant dragons bared their teeth and roared in a low voice. On the coast, the two sides confronted each other, and the atmosphere was solemn. Soft negotiations are useless. What is useful is absolute force. I am not here to discuss today. Chung Nua said, his hand casually rolled up a bunch of hair around his neck. You can choose whether to be trapped here to death, or to enter the human world and live in peace with them. Thorn Rabbit added with a malicious smile. If you choose one, your lovely dragon cubs will still belong to us, and then the history of the dragon clan will be completely dependent on us. You? If it weren't for the legendary level in our clan. Li Yuan interrupted. Friendly reminder, Abelpa was just dealt with by us some time ago. After all, we have a lot of legendary levels. The momentum of the chain behind Chung Nua weakened, and said, think about it. Xiang Yuelong was beside Chung Nua, sensing his mental fluctuations at close range, feeling some pressure. But this pressure did not make him palpitate. Instead his heart was pounding. He liked Chung Nua, who was so powerful and flamboyant. And his domineering and beautiful smile made him unable to look away. Every strand of hair seemed to be emitting light and shining. Chung Nua felt a strong gaze from one side, and he glanced sideways carelessly, meeting Xiang Yuelong's bright eyes. His eyelids jumped, and he quickly threw this little episode out of his mind. What are you thinking? Andy's eyes widened. It's only been a short time. Chung Nua, I think it's been a long time. G2 agreed yes. It's been a long time. The dragons looked at G2 with angry eyes. G2 put the back of his hand on his lips and laughed. The eyes narrowed into a line because of the laughter. The cold eyes were mixed with teasing and badness, which made the dragons angry. Chung Nua took out a box of sushi and sent it to G2 with a chain. Another chain wrapped around its body, pulling it back, and using its actions to shut it up. The thorny rabbit smiled wildly, and started eating without a care. It quickly finished a box. And just as the thorny rabbit was about to continue to stir up trouble, another box of food was delivered by Chung Nua's chain. The dragons on the coast quickly discussed it. And Andy asked, can you decide this? Representing the dark elves and humans? It had always been puzzled about Chung Nua's position among the dark elves. He is just a newly promoted legendary, and a newly transformed human. He has no foundation in the dark elves. His strength is uncertain for the time being. But he feels more oppressive than Longyu and the others. But he is only slightly stronger. He cannot make Longyu and Thorn Rabbit listen to him. Thorn Rabbit, Longyu and Dark Butterfly will not obey each other so much. This human reincarnated dark elf feels like a commander among them. I can. Chung Nua's tone was not very firm. But the casual tone has a very confident feeling. What have you considered? If you don't hurt the young dragons, and don't force the young dragons to contract with humans, and don't arbitrarily enslave and harm the dragons, then we can live in peace with humans. Chung Nua looked at Andy. Can you represent the dragons? A giant dragon next to him immediately said, Lord Andy is the son of Chief Nephis. I didn't realize that. This is still a second-generation dragon. Okay then. Chung Nua's smile warmed up. It's settled. Once you pass the test, you can enter and leave Dragon Island freely. This sounded awkward. Dragon Island was obviously their home. The dragons were silent for a while. Thorny Rabbit quickly devoured the food, wiped its mouth, flew over and said happily, shouldn't they go to a human school? Thorny Rabbit doesn't do any good things. It just wants to torture others. Chung Nua thought as he looked at Thorny Rabbit. Of course, it's impossible to send the dragons to human schools. Such a large body size is not suitable for human schools. Chung Nua directly used the screens and projectors bought by the Dark Elves to watch movies, and taught online classes. The dragon's concept should also be properly educated. Otherwise, they can easily cause casualties when entering the human kingdom. The advanced alien races in the Eastern Alliance's sphere of influence and the adjacent areas were restricted by Chung Nuo. The advanced alien races could not cause any trouble, and were forced to be honest. The advanced alien races in the Western Alliance were not sanctioned. The development is very rapid, and they are constantly invading human kingdoms. Although there are only 6 advanced alien races, except for the Dark Elves, which have only one gathering point. The other alien races have many groups. They have come one after another, and have been encircling the Western territory. The advanced alien races, who are used to war, have no intention of getting along with humans in a friendly manner. They have been expanding their territory, competing with other advanced alien races, and seizing territory. Some natural elves have also come. There are also legendary ones. But they did not go to the east to punish the group of dark elves, but were busy grabbing territory first. Unlike the mermaids and dragons, they did not directly use entertainment slaughter to drive away the humans in the territory they set their eyes on, but directly controlled the local leaders, and controlled them layer by layer. The order in the Western Alliance continued to be chaotic. The Western Alliance was in chaos, and no one believed the Dark Elves' words of destroying the world. It is better to believe that the 5 advanced alien races other than the Dark Elves will exterminate humans than to believe in the prophecy of the destruction of the world. People in the Eastern Alliance, their love for the Dark Elves has once again reached a new level. Walking on the streets of the Eastern Alliance, you can see all kinds of derivative products with the image of the Dark Elves everywhere. The Dark Elves dolls in the claw machines, the Dark Elves pendants on the school bags, the kettles with Dark Elves stickers, etc., are all some of the Dark Elves images in the Sanhua comics. Its physical comics can be seen in many bookstores in the Eastern Alliance. Many Sakura people complained that the Sakura government listed Sanghai's comics as banned books. Imports are prohibited. Many Sakura people bought comics by Aoga in Dragon Country. They were detained at the customs. Many people complained on social platforms. Some mocked and some scolded. There was constant disturbance. Sakura government officials were pissed off by the brain circuits of some Chinese people. But they didn't deal with them, because their focus was on another matter, stealing dragons. Currently, the dragons on Nile Dragon Island have been put on power-suppressing collars by the Dark Elves. Now a high-level ability user can definitely beat an ordinary dragon. During this period, they have sent people to investigate. There are some sub-adult dragons on Dragon Island. Their strength is not even high-level. Their small size makes it easier to smuggle them out. Dragons have high research value, and are full of treasures. Now those dragons are suppressed by the Dark Elves on Dragon Island. This is the best opportunity to steal dragons. A team of Sakura Country ability users sneaked onto Dragon Island. They sneaked onto the island, and did not notice that there were a few small humanoid figures in the dark woods. Duoshui held the recording bead, recording the whole process from stealing the dragon to being killed. A dark elf looked at the tragic corpse in front of him and said, "They dare to come to Dragon Island to catch dragons when they are so weak. I really don't understand where they get the courage." The dragons were very angry, and the surrounding terrain was severely damaged. Chung Nuo lied, and humans had no intention of living in peace with them. Fo Xiao sensed the smell of blood and flew over. The Dark Elves at the scene chattered and told it what happened. Fo Xiao immediately called Chung Nuo. "Fo Xiao, what do humans mean by this?" The dragon saw Fo Xiao and roared at him. Fo Xiao said calmly, "These are humans from the Western Alliance countries, and those who want to live in peace with you are humans from the Eastern Alliance. Don't play word games." The dragons were indignant, thinking that Chung Nuo and this group of Dark Elves were playing tricks on them. "Jiochi, I've been giving you lessons recently. Don't you guys take your online lessons well? There are 2 big alliances in the human world, and they don't have good relations." Some dragons had a guilty look on their angry faces. Andy shouted, "We are all human beings anyway." Fo Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly. These dragons still don't have brains. It raised the phone in its hand, and pointed it at the dragons, and amplified it. "I am Chung Nuo." The dragons thought Chung Nuo would explain or quibble, but the person on the other end of the phone said, "I will come to give you a test in a few days. Whoever fails, you can only eat one chitin for a month. And you are not allowed to eat." The dragons were silent. "And the workload will be doubled. Until you understand the basic knowledge of the human world." Andy reacted, and said confidently, "We are now talking about humans coming to the island to catch our monsters." "Yes. That's right. Don't change the subject." The dragons agreed. But their anger were not as strong as before. "I will catch the culprit in this matter in front of you," Chung Nuo said. The dragons on the Maluo Dragon Island can now tell which countries there are in human society. You shouldn't be dumber than them. Right? The group of dragons on the Maluo Dragon Island? Of course not, Andy said immediately. You will catch the culprit. Right? Of course. Chung Nuo was sending the news that the Sakura people went to the island to steal dragons, and were killed to the relevant units in Beijing North City that manage news media. Many people were woken up by phone calls in their sleep and went back to work. From anger to eating melons. They only needed to understand the reason for overtime. The Sakura people hadn't reacted yet. There were suddenly many comments on the internet condemning them for sending people to Dragon Island to catch dragons. Chapter 108 Hard Control. The top leaders of the in-country, who were responsible for catching the dragon, were stunned when they heard the news from the internet. The people they sent out had not returned yet. They soon realized that the people they sent out had failed and were discovered. They were about to deny it. But then, they saw a video of the filming bead on the internet. In the end, they could only pretend to be dead and said that they did not know those who came ashore. On the Nile Dragon Island, Chung Nua had a headache. The in-country people who came to the island were torn to pieces by the dragon. It was Ming Dai who said that recent events could be seen from their remaining soul fragments. Following the images in their soul fragments, Chung Nua quickly found the leader behind them. He did not do it himself to leave room for gossip. He just recorded the images in the soul fragments that Ming Dai found from Nile Dragon Island, posted them online, and then airdropped the dragon again. At the time of the incident, Chung Nua also posted a video of eating hot pot in Fushan City on his personal account, implying that the dragon's attack on the Sakura capital government office again had nothing to do with him. It was just the dragon's revenge. Many people on the internet were laughing and making jokes. The government officials of Sakura country, who were still alive, were so angry. After the dragons took revenge, their impression of Chung Nua improved slightly, just slightly, because Chung Nua said he would come to supervise their exams in a few days. In June, the fusion of the two worlds was basically completed, and the monsters and high-level alien races from the other world basically all descended on the human world, including the mythical level of each race. When the mythical level first appeared, there was a commotion among the human race. Because Chung Nua and the Dark Elves forced the first few batches of high-level aliens that descended in the Eastern Alliance and nearby areas to wear collars that suppressed their power. After the mythical level of those species came over, after understanding the situation, the first thing they did was to ask the Dark Elves to take out the key. Chung Nua was not afraid of them. Each alien race only had one mythical level, and the mythical level could not act rashly now. The law did not allow it. They were always watching them. The suppressed mythical monsters are not very scary to the legendary monsters. Moreover, if the mythical monsters fight, it is easy to break the space barrier and let the disaster come. They just came to the new world. And those legendary monsters don't want to die together. The mythical monsters of nature elves, tree people and dwarves descended on the Western Alliance. And the mythical monsters of mermaids and dragons descended on the Eastern Alliance. The first three, because in the Western Alliance, their own tribes were not put on the chains of suppressed power by the Dark Elves, although other tribes have them. They can barely bear it and sit still. The two behind them, their tribes have all been enslaved. Although they are angry, they can only bear it temporarily after weighing the pros and cons. The other three legendary ones did not join forces with them. They were watched by the law and had to deal with a Dark Elf mother tree that had adapted to this world and many legendary Dark Elves. It was very difficult. There were also strange qualities in the hands of those guys, which made it even more difficult to deal with. The main thing is that it seems that at present, the Dark Elves didn't treat the monsters of their species too harshly. And the monsters themselves were a little strange. And they were popular with many strange things. On Nile Dragon Island, the mythical dragon Nephi's had just stopped being angry because he heard that humans could help them increase the hatching rate of Dragon Island. He thought that he would make plans after it adapted to this world in the future. And then, he saw his son Andy pushing a strange thing over. What kind of alchemical equipment is this? Why doesn't it feel powerful? Andy, father, let's watch some apocalyptic movies to calm down. Another new word he had never heard of. Phoenix's huge dragon head was suspicious. Movie? Andy explained to Phoenix what a movie was, and explained a lot of other things. He asked other dragons to adjust the projection equipment and screen, and manually set up a barrier to block the sunlight, creating a dark night effect. This strange equipment was not dangerous at all. Phoenix relaxed and observed for the time being, and was soon attracted by the plot of the movie. Is this a human photo bead? Has a huge disaster happened in this world? Andy, no, everything in the movie is fake, made by humans, and the humans in it are called actors. In a gathering place of mermaids, similar things happened, but there was no dragon egg to help the mythical mermaids calm down. Nieshu was very unhappy because of the threat from Chungnua and the Dark Elves. The low pressure on her body made the surrounding water flow abnormal. I don't know what method the Dark Elves used, the entire population was moved here in advance. And it took a long time to adapt. It also snatched a lot of power from the law fragments. After just one encounter, it found that there were many Dark Elves who were close to the legendary level. On the other hand, the mermaids have not adapted to this world yet, and their power cannot be exerted 100%. They also put on collars that suppress their power. The combat effectiveness of the entire tribe has dropped sharply. At present, there is no chance of winning. Nieshu regretted that she had let the tribe monsters snatch the law fragments before. Send the tribe monsters here one by one as quickly as possible. Not only it does this, but everyone does this, but in the end they deliver food to the Dark Elves. I heard that a legendary mermaid from the mermaid tribe next door was killed. That group of Dark Elves will eventually destroy the world. If they can't be dealt with as soon as possible, the world will also be doomed. Lord Neshu. A mermaid called out softly at the entrance of the underwater cave, interrupting Neshu's meditation. What's the matter? The Dark Elf named Chungnua said that you should finish reading the contents of these recording beads. Nieshu stretched out her hand, and the water flow rolled all the recording beads in the mermaid's hand into her hand, and the beads reflected the pale and handsome face that could not hide the hostility. He said that this should be shown on a big screen, but humans don't have waterproof TVs now, so they recorded it with recording beads. Did he say what was in it? Nieshu was annoyed when she heard Chungnua, the Dark Elf she had never seen before. It smells very similar to Eldiso, the mother tree of the Dark Elves. That annoying guy. They said it was some interesting things from the human world, and things that represent civilization. Neshu frowned, and the veins on the back of her hand holding the beads bulged slightly. Civilization? The guy who represents disasters is talking about civilization? It feels really ironic. Okay. You go first. Those humans also sent some things. Piled on the reef. What do you think? Take it away. Neshu found that the mermaid under his command was hesitant to speak, and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" The mermaid Melt rubbed his hands and said carefully, "Before you came, the monsters of the tribe studied those human things. And they were okay. Food and entertainment. But they were not suitable for use in the sea." Neshu stood up, swung his huge fish tail, and swam out of the cave in an instant, disappearing in front of Melt in the blink of an eye. Melt was startled, and hurriedly turned around to follow. Neshu quickly swam to the surface of the sea. Many mermaids were enthusiastically taking things with a strong human smell on the reef. It narrowed its eyes slightly, and the smell frightened many mermaids and scattered in panic. Melt followed, looking at Neshu with a stern expression, and spoke more carefully, "Lord Neshu. At first everyone hated human things, but then they found that humans didn't do anything. So they tried it. These things are more like a gesture of goodwill from humans every time humans came to deliver things. They were very nice. They were forced to wear collars by the Dark Elves, which forced the kind-hearted mermaids to observe humans patiently. They couldn't attack humans because there were Dark Elves around. After Neshu came, the Dark Elves retreated a little further. Neshu casually took out a bag of strange things from the bag, shook it, and it was very light. There was not much in it. This is potato chips. A human snack. I think it tastes okay. A high-level mermaid, Caslo, approached tentatively and said, "Lord Neshu, the food offered by humans is quite good, although it is useless. It tastes good. Those Dark Elves live directly in human cities, and eat and drink as much as they want in human cities every day." Neshu said something without a subject. Stupid guys. Caslo, although most humans are weak, the things they create are not bad. After we get rid of the Dark Elves, I think you can leave human civilization behind. Nieshu did not comment, casually and violently opened a box that exuded fragrance. Melt watched Neshu taste one, and said, "This thing is called fried chicken. The Dark Elves here used to eat it." Nieshu frowned slightly, but there was no irritation or disgust in his eyes. It opened another box that exuded fragrance, and inside was something wrapped in paper. It opened it and took a bite. Caslo handed over a bottle of Coke. "It tastes good with this." Mel took out a mobile phone from his space equipment, opened the video software, played the video of the Dark Elves on the street, showed it to Neshu and said, "The Dark Elves are very pretentious now, deceiving humans to study the secret of dragon egg hatching and now the dragons on Nile Dragon Island and Morrowind Dragon Island seem to coexist peacefully with humans. What is this? Neshu took the phone and looked through it in confusion. This is something made by humans, similar to the photo bead, but the function is much stronger than the photo bead you see here. Chung Nuo specially made some content and put it in the photo bead, trying to change the attitude of the mythical mermaid in the sea, but he didn't expect that Neshu didn't watch the content he carefully selected, but watched the video in a mobile phone in the hands of his mermaid. From serious to non-serious, there are videos of all kinds of content. Neshu was controlled for several hours, until the phone ran out of power and turned off automatically, and then his attention was diverted from the thing called mobile phone. There was still some itch that was not enough. Then I looked at the bag of food that was full next to me. It had eaten a lot of it without me noticing. This feeling was very strange. And a little dangerous. Neshu was alert, but asked, "Why is this thing dark?" "It needs to be charged. It's out of power." "Go charge it." Humans are really a strange race. Although they are weak, they have produced a lot of things. No wonder Melt and the others suggested that it leave human civilization. It is really entertaining. Neshu returned to the underwater cave. And some videos about dark elves that he had just watched appeared in his mind. There were real ones. And some were called comics. The human filter used in the comics was terribly heavy, making the cursed incarnations harmless. Some of them made him want to vomit. Although he could not understand human words, he had eyes. Those dark elves in the comics became like natural elves. Speaking of which, Neshu suddenly realized that after coming to this world, the dark elves he saw were different from those he saw in the original world. As a mythical monster, Neshu could better perceive the changes in the dark elves. The strong curse auras seemed to have become less. Chapter 109 Busy. The situation was temporarily deadlocked for a while. The several high-level alien races that descended on the Western Alliance saw that they could not deal with the dark elves for the time being, so they focused on seizing territory. They had multiple tribes, and each tribe was seizing territory. Some were happy and some were sad. The Western Alliance was sad for humans, and the Eastern Alliance was sad for high-level alien races. The world seemed to be split, and two different worlds were formed quickly in a short period of time. Chung Nuo didn't deliberately let the high-level aliens descend on the Western Alliance. But it was too far away. He couldn't choose to fight in groups. And the Western Alliance government didn't support him earlier. Now, even if the Western Alliance government supports him, he can only go to the front battlefield. He awakened all the Dark Elves to prepare for the large-scale war that will come later. Ordinary people in the Eastern Alliance are unaware of it, and still live their lives as usual, discussing daily necessities, discussing the monsters outside the city and today's harvest, etc., although anxious but not desperate. The officials of the Eastern Alliance government can't be as relaxed as ordinary people. Everyone knows that there will be a fierce battle of direct conflict next. Secretly, everyone is conserving their energy. Fushan City Research Institute. Chung Nuo walked into the laboratory building dedicated to breeding dragon eggs. This place has recently been transformed into a place dedicated to breeding dragon eggs. The guards and patrols are stricter than other places. Walking through a white corridor, Chung Nuo pressed his pass on the sensor on the side of a metal door. And the metal door opened with a beep. There were many dragon eggs in the room, each of which was placed in a special incubator. The dragon eggs were less than halfway through their nutrient period. Han Sheng was recording something in a notebook. Hearing the noise, his eyes turned to the source of the sound. "Why are you free to come here today?" Chung Nuo has been busy recently. He has to move the Dark Elves tribe from the data map in his palm. There is also the training of Dark Yunai into a new Dark Elf, and the training of high-level ability users from other cities. In his spare time, he also went to Dragon Island and the Mermaid tribe to lobby them, convincing them that the Dark Elves would not destroy the world now. His leisurely life was gone forever. Xiang Yuelong had not seen Chung Nuo recently. Those dragons have loosened their mouths. Chung Nuo looked a little tired, but relaxed. As long as they see the young dragons, they agreed to stand on our side. Han Sheng opened his eyes wide and said excitedly, "Good news, thank you for your hard work." Soon, he became a little worried, but will they go back on their word? Once the collars are taken off? No. Chung Nuo shook his head. There will be laws as witnesses. The Dark Elf Mother Tree and the Dragon Clan's mythical level will sign a contract under the witness of the laws. Now we need to think about the content of the contract. But for those dragons who are not very smart, the probability of playing a text trap is not high. That being said, Chung Nuo is still very cautious. The content of the contract needs to be repeatedly reviewed with Thorny Rabbit and others. It can only be used after confirmation. The content of the contract needs to involve humans, dark elves, and they must be restricted from harming humans without reason, and they cannot attack dark elves because of prophecy, etc. Songhua recently pulled the last piece of floating island fragment back from the void, the clan land of the dark elves, and the floating island is complete. You don't need to use data maps. You can come to this world directly. Han Sheng pulled Chung Nua to a row of tank-shaped incubators, and said, for the young dragons, Number 1 and Number 4 are expected to hatch tomorrow. You can take them to Dragon Island to prove that we have the strength. Not bad. Chung Nua looked at the dragon eggs in Number 1 and Number 4 incubators, and his lips curled up. Has the merman not given in yet? Chung Nua heard Han Sheng's question, and the arc of his lips became smaller. He said calmly, Neshu is more difficult to deal with than Nip is. He will not agree to negotiate until he sees the Dark Elf Mother Tree. Han Sheng thought for a moment. I remember you said that the Dark Elf Mother Tree cannot be moved. Right? This is why Chung Nua had to persuade the Dragon Clan and the mermaids. The Dark Elf Mother Tree cannot be moved, and can only be used as a guarantee for the rear. He can split out a small spiritual body, but the fighting power of the spiritual body. When the floating island of the Dark Elves descends on this world, he can split a spirit body to negotiate with it. But it will take some time. Now the most lacking thing is time. The opinions of the Thorn Rabbit Dragon and the others are still very intense. When they heard the conditions offered by Neshu, they all wanted Neshu to go to hell. It always feels that there is something he doesn't know. Neshu clearly knows that he can now negotiate on behalf of the Dark Elf Mother Tree, but he insists on talking to him face to face. Under the sugar-coated bullets of humans, and the armed threats of the Dark Elves, the mermaids, the attitude softened a lot. And the Dark Elves have been gone for a long time recently. The mythical Neshu can definitely detect their changes. The Dark Elf Mother Tree told him that there were 2 directions in the prophecy at that time. However, after many times of spying, the monsters in the prophecy found that the endings of many worlds were heading towards destruction. There was only one world in which the Dark Elves did not incarnate into the curse of world destruction. The monsters chose the former one, which was easy and selfish. But now there is the dawn of the second way, and there is also the threat of force. It was much easier to force them to choose the next day's route. Han Sheng looked at Chung Nua. There was a faint blue-black under his deep eyes, which made the Dark Elf's beautiful face look a little tired. Do you want to go to the next door to rest? Han Sheng pointed in a direction. Chung Nua chuckled. When did your personality become so good? Tisk, I'll tire you to death. Han Sheng went to continue working. Chung Nua's phone rang with a text message. He picked up his phone, clicked on the text message, and raised his lips slightly. I'm leaving first. I'll come back tomorrow to see the dragon eggs. Chung Nua went home as fast as he could. Chung Nua opened the door. Xiang Yuelong came over. He relaxed his strength and fell directly on Xiang Yuelong, wrapped his hands around Xiang Yuelong's waist, muttered in a low voice, I'm so tired. A snow leopard-like plush tail stretched out, rubbing against Chung Nua's cheek. Did you get the tail of a new species of monster again? Chung Nua grabbed the tail. He casually grasped and stroked the fur, his eyebrows curved. Xiang Yuelong let Chung Nua touch his tail, and carried him to the bathroom door. I'll help you with the train tonight. You can take a bath, and go to bed directly. The text message Chung Nua just received was from Xiang Yuelong, saying that he had put the bath water in the bathtub for him. After returning from a business trip, there is nothing better than a warm bath water. Thanks. Chung Nua reluctantly let go of Xiang Yuelong's tail. He got off Xiang Yuelong and walked into the bathroom. After a nap, he had to get the floating castle out of the data map. The preparations were almost done, and he could move it out tonight. When Chung Nua came out of the shower, Xiang Yuelong had already left. There was a sticky note on the wall opposite the bathroom door, which said there were desserts in the refrigerator, and there was heated milk on the induction cooker in the kitchen. Chung Nua simply put on his pajamas, and walked to open the refrigerator door. Seeing many kinds of desserts inside, he looked relaxed. He picked one at random, went to the kitchen to get some milk, and simply enjoyed the bedtime snack that Xiang Yuelong prepared for him, and then went to bed. While he was sleeping, on the floating island in the data map, the Dark Elves were busy, cutting out such a large space, which was a lot of work. At around 10 o'clock in the evening, Chung Nua woke up, sat up and was stunned for a while, then got dressed. Go to the Moonlight Jungle. The landing site of the floating island is prepared here. Songhua stayed at the top floor of the Blood Spirit Castle, controlling the core of the island. The light emitted by the dark elf mother tree was more dazzling than usual, and the stars on the branches were like breathing lights. Thorny Rabbit and Long Yu were outside, preparing to meet with Chung Nuo. Everything was ready. San Hua injected his mental power into the core magic circle. A crack appeared in the space above the moonlight jungle, and there was lightning and thunder when it was torn apart. There are lightning-like energy fluctuations in the space cracks like a black hole, making the space inside look very scary. The floating island is passing through this terrifying space. The ordinary monsters in the moonlight jungle trembled and hid. The allied troops stationed outside the jungle looked at this scene in amazement. The people in Fushan City can also see the strange phenomenon in the distance, and the huge floating island in the dark. Xiang Yuelong noticed the unusual space fluctuations, and let the ability users, who came to train rest first, flying up into the air. I looked in the direction of the moonlight jungle. The amazing island was actually suspended in the air. It was emerging from the space cracks little by little. The dark clouds blocked the view. And there was fog. This made the floating island look even more mysterious. That was where the dark elves lived. People in several nearby cities took out their mobile phones to take pictures of this incredible scene and posted them online. The number of readers and topics rose rapidly. Such a large island can actually float in the air, so magical. Is the floating castle we saw before part of it? I want to see what it looks like. After the fog is gone, I should be able to see the general situation of the island nearby. After some operations, the floating island of the Dark Elves finally came out of the data map and landed in the human world. The huge island floated above the moonlight jungle, blocking a lot of moonlight, casting a huge shadow on the moonlight jungle. Chung Nuo looked at the floating island, mainly to see if there was any problem with the space. In the room where the core magic array was placed, San Hua lay down breathlessly, his dark green hair scattered on the floor, and his thick snake tail twisted and turned randomly. Finally, this task was completed, leading the entire tribe through space. It was really terrible. The dark butterfly waiting outside the door walked in, raised his hand, and some blue butterflies flew out of his hand. It landed on San Hua's head, transmitting spiritual power to it. The natural elves of the Western Alliance saw the video, thought for a while, and quickly guessed why the dark elves could come to this world early and in large numbers. The chief of the natural elves, Helatana, clenched his fists, his nails almost sinking into the flesh. Aldiso, you are capable. It has been losing all its life. It has become the chief of the natural elves, but it still feels frustrated countless times in front of Aldiso. Helatana stared at the figure of a dark elf with silver-gray hair on the human's mobile phone. It also wants to make Aldiso feel this kind of frustration, whether it is for the public or for private. The curse of disaster must be eliminated. Chapter 110 Hatching. Chung Nuo flew to the floating island, landed in the large garden behind the Blood Spirit Castle, and walked towards the dark elf mother tree. Chung Nuo looked at him, and he didn't seem to be feeling any discomfort, thinking that was great. How long does it take you to separate the spirit body? Long Yu flew over, and said disdainfully, Chung Nuo, are you really going to let the mother tree go to see the guy? Chung Nuo looked at it. There's nothing we can do about it, even if we don't go to see Nieshu alone when signing the contract. The mother tree will also meet with Nieshu. He paused and asked, what is there that I don't know? Mingdai and Sanhua flew over, and hovered in the air. This is the grudge between the mother tree's generation. Mingdai looked at the mother tree. It's not important. Chung Nuo felt that there was a subtle pause in Mingdi's speech, which made him more curious about what the grudge was. It didn't seem like a good thing, otherwise Longyu and the others would have said it long ago. The reason for not telling is that it feels like the mother tree has done something shameful. Chung Nuo thought of the instructions for the things in the Dark Elf warehouse, as well as some things recorded in history, and felt more and more that this might be the case. No need to say. I will go and talk to Nieshu in person in a while. Mother tree. Several Dark Elves expressed opposition. Chung Nuo. Please tell Nieshu that I will be there in 7 days. Chung Nuo nodded. Okay. He was actually a little curious about the humanoid form of the Dark Elf mother tree. Although he had seen it in a portrait, he might be able to tell whether it was a man or a woman by looking at it with his naked eyes. Chung Nuo made a phone call directly on the floating island. When he was calling, he suddenly remembered that he could actually make a video call. So he stopped his finger from making the call, and wanted to make a video call to the leader of the ability team, who was guarding the mermaid tribe where Nieshu was. The voice transmitted by the spirit cannot be transmitted through human mobile phones. Chung Nuo was startled. He looked up. Do you know what I want to do? I see. Chung Nuo looked at the tall and dreamy dark elf mother tree. It still felt very subtle to him that a tree could play with a human mobile phone visually. There was no other way. I could only wait for 7 days. The next day, Chung Nuo and Xiang Yuelong went to the research institute together. Not only them, many people with special abilities came. Chung Nuo saw Wu Yuanrui and the others. The purpose of everyone coming was very obvious: to watch the dragon egg hatch. It was a rare event. The first wave of dragon eggs hatched. It was a historic moment. Everyone came to join in the fun. Han Sheng was disgusted. A bunch of people came to surround him. Is this the dragon egg to be hatched? The life breath of this dragon egg is very strong. Let me see. Although the laboratory for cultivating dragon eggs has a high authority, unfortunately, everyone present can enter. They are all high-level people with positions. Lu Rong put her face very close, opening his eyes wide to observe the dragon egg. His eyes were full of excitement. Ouyang Di took out his SLR camera, prepared to take a picture of the moment when the dragon egg broke its shell. Chung Nuo finally managed to squeeze Xiang Yuelong in, listening to the chirping sounds around him like a vegetable market. Han Sheng's forehead was throbbing with veins. He endured it again and again. Finally he couldn't help but said, "Don't crowd here, get out. Get out." And Mo was the first one to be pushed out by Han Sheng as an example. Many people present had guessed the relationship between them. Seeing that Han Sheng even pushed Mo out, he could only leave reluctantly. Ouyang Di said to Chung Nuo with a SLR, "I can stay and take pictures. I've already taken pictures on Dragon Island, so I can take pictures of the dragon eggs this time." Before Chung Nuo could say anything, Han Sheng pushed Ouyang Di out. "There are cameras." Xiang Yuelong stood closer to Chung Nuo silently, so as not to be noticed by Han Sheng, and pushed out too. He really wanted to see the dragon eggs hatch. After Han Sheng pushed everyone out, he was afraid that other leaders from above would come to join in the fun and watch. He simply locked the lab, turned his head and saw Xiang Yuelong, who was very tall but wanted to hide himself behind Chung Nuo. The corner of his mouth twitched. He was not blind. Chung Nuo smiled. "How long will it take?" "It should be in the morning hours." Han Sheng rubbed his temples. "How did the news spread?" "There are many media waiting outside for the first-hand news." "Who knows?" Chung Nuo glanced at Xiang Yuelong, who was close to him, patted his waist. "Han Sheng will not drive you out. I provided the dragon egg." Han Sheng, who didn't see it, was innocent. He took the notebook and went to observe the dragon egg. Chung Nuo also walked to another culture tank to look at the dragon egg. He just looked for a few seconds, and suddenly found a crack on the dragon egg shell. He was about to call Han Sheng over, but he found that the crack, crack, suddenly increased, quickly getting longer and bigger. He didn't need to call. Han Sheng and Xiang Yuelong rushed over. 3 people crowded in front of the culture tank, looking at the dragon egg in the broken shell with their eyes wide open. The crack on the dragon egg kept getting bigger and bigger. The nutrient solution in the incubator was only a shallow layer, and it would not flow back into the crack of the dragon egg. I don't know how long it took. Under the gaze of the 3 people, a young dragon broke through the dragon egg. So wet, its eyes were stuck and struggled to open, and the first thing it saw was a charming and beautiful face. Han Sheng, who was suddenly pushed away, said. He glared at Xiang Yuelong. "I hate love-brain people the most." Xiang Yuelong acted as if nothing had happened, and asked, "Will the young dragon recognize the first person it sees as its parent?" Chung Nuo noticed Xiang Yuelong's little action and chuckled. "No. The higher-level alien races have their own basic inherited memories." Sure enough, after the young dragon saw Chung Nuo, it was at a loss for a few seconds, and the soft scales on its body suddenly exploded. Dark elf. The young dragon made a snoring sound in its throat, warning Chung Nuo while trying to call its companions and elders. Chung Nuo had a bad idea. He opened the culture tank, reached deep with his hands, and picked up the struggling dragon inside. The dragon bit Chung Nuo's arm with its fully grown milk teeth, which did not even leave a mark. Instead, it broke its teeth and cried in pain. Chung Nuo laughed. Chung Nuo held the black dragon in his arms, and said cheerfully, "Little guy, it's time to update the inherited memory." The dragon stretched out its claws towards Han Sheng. It was familiar with the aura of this person. Han Sheng looked at the bully Chung Nuo. "I was speechless. Is it okay for you to bully the big with your small size? What's wrong with that?" Chung Nuo held the young dragon down. "You should bully when it's young, Yuelong. Do you want to touch it?" Xiang Yuelong nodded, reached out, and touched the young dragon's back curiously. the young dragon turned around, bit it fiercely, almost broke its teeth again, and cried. Two mythical level people bullying a young dragon are not ashamed. Han Sheng was speechless. The dragon egg next to him suddenly made a noise, and this time Han Sheng went over first. The one that had broken out of its shell was a red baby dragon. Han Sheng didn't dare to be as reckless as Cheng Nuo. He first tried to reach out his hand. After he felt that the baby dragon wouldn't bite him, he took the baby dragon out. When the red baby dragon saw Cheng Nuo, it was stunned for a few seconds, and then it had the same reaction as the black baby dragon. Its scales exploded, but it put its head into Han Sheng's arms, and its butt was exposed. Cheng Nuo raised his eyebrows, and reached out to poke the red baby dragon's butt. The red baby dragon trembled, and he burst out laughing. Han Sheng felt that he couldn't bear to watch. He caught a glimpse of Xiang Yuelong's focused and infatuated eyes from the corner of his eye, and felt a chill all over his body. When he felt a chill, he thought that if Amo was as obedient as Xiang Yuelong, he could save a lot of energy. Han Sheng hugged the red dragon in his arms tightly, and said, I want this red dragon, you just take the dragon to Dragon Island. The red dragon didn't seem to reject him. Taking it there is just to give them a proof, and then you still have to raise it in the research institute. Cheng Nuo's tone suddenly lowered. At least the first batch must be. Han Sheng was surprised. Do the dragons agree? It's settled. Cheng Nuo smiled brightly and meaningfully, and there seemed to be a black mist flowing in his eyes. Either give them the young dragons to raise, remove the collar and fight the natural elves together with the dark elves, or take the dragon eggs back, but don't take the collar. If the dark elves lose, they will have to be slaves to the natural elves, and even if the dark elves win, they won't have a chance to take the collar. There are only two choices. Only one can be chosen. That day, the pressure from the mythical dragon Nephi's almost made Cheng Nuo think that it was going to attack, but the law made him sober in time. Cheng Nuo stroked the black dragon in his arms, feeling happy. Give me that one too. The red dragon hummed, and kept drilling into Han Sheng's arms. Han Sheng comforted it, saying, This is only the first day, I have to observe their physical condition, and you can take them to Dragon Island in a few days. Cheng Nuo chuckled with an ambiguous meaning, You're soft-hearted? This is not like you. It's a baby dragon after all. Han Sheng ignored Cheng Nuo's mocking words. This is the dragon egg I hatched myself. Cheng Nuo gave the black baby dragon to Xiang Yuelong, who took it in a panic. Give it to you. It doesn't like me either. Cheng Nuo already had a mist dragon butterfly, and was not very interested in raising a new cub. So he simply gave it to Xiang Yuelong. At present, Cheng Nuo felt that the mist dragon butterfly was more beautiful than the giant dragon. The black dragon was still a little restless after being in Xiang Yuelong's hands. Xiang Yuelong smelled like Cheng Nuo, and the breath of the dark elves made it very uneasy. Xiang Yuelong suppressed it forcefully. The black dragon could not struggle free, so it had to be quiet for a while. Han Sheng checked the dragon's physical condition for a few days, and after confirming that there was no problem, Cheng Nuo took them to Dragon Island to show the giant dragons. When the two dragons saw a large number of adult giant dragons, tears came out, and they rushed over crying. The dragons were all soft-hearted. The number of newborns in the dragon tribe is very low, and each dragon cub is very precious. Cheng Nuo said in a very unpleasant way, Chief Nephis, do you agree to sign the contract now? Nephis looked at the two baby dragons, with deep eyes and a deep voice. Okay. Then I will take them back first. Hey. You are going too far. The dragon on the side shouted angrily. That's right. You are taking the baby dragons away after just a short time here. Cheng Nuo smiled. I didn't bring the special nutrient solution they need, they will be hungry later. Nephis. The nature of the dark elves is still very bad, even though there is not much curse aura. Did Neshu agree? Cheng Nuo crossed his arms. It must see our mother tree, before it is willing to talk about this. Nefisti raised his dragon claws, and touched his chin. It still cares about that matter. What matter? Seeing Cheng Nuo's curiosity. Nephis. Deliberately not saying, you will know if you ask yourself. Cheng Nuo curved his eyes. If you tell me, I will take them back at night. Cheng Nuo said, pulling 2 bottles of nutrient solution from the data map. Nephis. The dark elves are really annoying, and even without the prophecy, they would want to be wiped out. Since you want to know so much, I will tell you, but after you know, the image of Aldiso in your mind will not be so good. Aldiso seems to be the name of the dark elf mother tree. Cheng Nuo, it's okay. You know the thing you researched, right? It's called a love potion. Aldiso used it on Neshu. Cheng Nuo's originally relaxed expression was petrified, with a look of shock. Is it the love potion he gave to Han Sheng to watch the show? The Dark Elf Mother Tree actually also used it. Aldiso's mature, steady, gentle and tolerant image is just as Nephi said. It broke gently in Cheng Nua's heart. Xiang Yuelong looked at Cheng Nua, who was very emotional. With doubt, love potion? The name of the potion made it sound like something not serious. Cheng Nua's expression and tone were complicated for a moment. A thing that can be serious and not suitable for children. Han Sheng, who was serious, took it for research, and it was not serious. Could it be that the Dark Elf Mother Tree did the same thing to Neshu as noted in the recipe of the love potion? No wonder Long Yu and the others were unwilling to talk about it. This matter really cannot be easily spread. Chapter 111 Fierce Battle. The amount of information was so explosive that after Cheng Nua returned, he could hardly look directly at the Dark Elf Mother Tree. When the Dark Elf Mother Tree split into his spirit body and wanted to go to the mermaid tribe with him, Cheng Nua still hadn't adjusted. It was completely unimaginable that he would do such a thing. You seem to be worried recently? The human form split from Aldiso was a spirit body, half virtualized, exuding a faint silver-gray color, making it particularly dreamy, more like the legendary elves. His facial features are sharp but not aggressive. His eyebrows are gentle and tolerant like an elder. His long hair is scattered. His temperament is elegant and noble. His divinity is also strong. No. Cheng Nua paused. I just learned some old stories from Nephi's. Aldiso blinked and chuckled. I am also a dark elf. But you can't tell from the appearance, and you can't tell from daily contact, Cheng Nua thought. They boarded the Special Armed Bureau's special plane. There were many dark elves on the plane, and the only humans were Cheng Nua and the pilot. You know? Long Yu was suspicious. Cheng Nua nodded. Long Yu TSK. G2 smiled and said, anyway. It's Nishu who got embarrassed. It doesn't matter whether Cheng Nua knows or not. But this matter doesn't match the current image of Aldiso. Long Yu frowned, and was not very happy. While talking, the special plane landed quickly. There were already local people stationed outside the apron. Cheng Nua told them that they didn't need to go together. But when they were outside the mermaid tribe, Aldiso told them that they didn't need to go together either. Long Yu immediately said, how can I let you go alone? It's so cheap. Thorny Rabbit rarely agreed with Long Yu's opinion. It's right, Lord Aldiso. It's more convenient for me to go alone. Aldiso's tone was soft, but his attitude was firm. The Dark Elves could only stay where they were, watching Aldiso's spirit body go to the mermaid tribe alone. Cheng Nua, they won't fight. Right? It's possible. Long Yu crossed his arms, looking at the direction of the mermaid tribe with a fierce look. I just don't feel at ease about this after all. After all? G2, Nieshu fainted from anger at that time. Cheng Nua looked at the direction of the mermaid tribe. The breeze brought moist sea air, and the breath of mermaids. Long Yu and G2 were waiting anxiously, but Cheng Nua was not too anxious. He had just become a dark elf recently. The support for Aldiso is not as strong as theirs. After waiting for a long time, there were restless and violent mental fluctuations from the Middle Mermaid tribe, but there was no sign of fighting. Finally, Aldiso flew back leisurely, without any dust or embarrassment on his body. Even if the spirit fights with people, it won't leave any traces. Cheng Nua looked at Aldiso. Lord Aldiso. Long Yu flew over first. Didn't that guy put forward any asshole conditions? Aldiso. No, it's all settled. In a few days, we can prepare to sign the contract under the witness of the law. The Thorn Rabbit looked suspicious, licked his lips, wanted to say something, but didn't, and his blood-red ruby eyes dimmed. After returning, Cheng Nua rechecked the contract terms with the Dark Elves, and hired a few lawyers to check if there were any loopholes in the rules. After everything was ready, Cheng Nua informed Niphiz and Neshu that he would take off the collars that suppressed their power after signing the contract. The three mythical aliens from the Western Alliance realized the power of the law. And then they realized that the two allies from the East had become traitors, and sided with the Dark Elves. It was unbelievable. They had fought so fiercely in another world before. Why did Nephi's and Neshu suddenly stand on the side of the Dark Elves? Unlike humans, they also clearly confirmed the content of the prophecy. There was no time to adapt to the law. The Dark Elves had already grabbed many fragments of the law. I thought that the tribes in the East could contain the Dark Elves, but they became allies instead. The Dark Elves are not dead, and the law fragments taken by them will not return to the Earth. We can only start the war in advance. We can't let more Dark Elves advance to the legendary level. The humans in the Western Alliance have been tossed around by several tribes of advanced aliens. They want to divert the trouble to the east, and want to expand with the power of advanced aliens to make up for the losses caused by the appearance of advanced aliens. Then the domestic hatred and contradictions are directed outwards, and they are very active in preparing for war. The countries of the Eastern Alliance are also preparing for war. Even ordinary people feel the signs of impending storms, and their lives are a little tighter. The sales of food have increased. The exchange of gold has also increased, and the market price of Gacha equipment has fluctuated and increased by a certain extent. Various impacts appear in all aspects of ordinary people's lives, but they are not too big. The ability users of the Alliance Army and the Special Armed Bureau feel more direct. Patrols and alerts are being strengthened, and daily training is also increasing. The sea is assisted by mermaids. The sky is fought by dragons, and the land battlefield is under the charge of dark elves. One day, the Lake Kingdom of the Western Alliance issued a warning from the natural elves, saying that if the humans, dragons and mermaids of the Eastern Alliance continue to cooperate with the dark elves, then a war of conquest must exist. The warning also asked Nephis and Neshu to think about the consequences of helping the dark elves. Their original world has been destroyed. After finally coming to this world, do they want the dark elves to destroy it? To be honest, after the mermaids and dragons heard the communication from the nature elves, they were a little nervous and worried at first. The prophecy has existed for too long, and they have been fighting the dark elves. They were used to it, and were worried for a while. But this nervousness disappeared with the appearance of the dark elves stationed around the tribe. Damn. The White Lotus and green tea, humans are really blind. The dark elves just gave everything with a hook. Still cute ass. What about Fat Boy Happy Water, fried chicken burgers, cake milk tea, and all kinds of variety shows? Movies and TV series, comics, novels and games, mermen and dragons swear they see that the faces of the dark elves have changed from one kind of depravity to another kind of depravity. Many dark elves they know have become fat, overeating, perming their hair, playing cards and racing, and they are going to destroy the world just like this? Don't talk about the dark elves, they themselves have changed a lot, corrupted by all kinds of products created by humans. Mermaids and dragons think that those advanced alien races in the West probably have never really experienced human civilization and products, so they make such remarks. Now their spiritual world is very fulfilling. There are many human things waiting for them to play and study. The warlike mermaids and dragons, and the daily battles within the tribe have been reduced a lot. But they love it most when the opponent wants to fight offline. When they are online, each advanced alien race is very happy at this time. The high-level aliens on both sides seem to live in different worlds, and their styles became more and more different. The high-level aliens in the Western Alliance did not know why Neshu and Niphis were so firm. The mermaids and dragons who landed in the Western Alliance were a little embarrassed, although they were not from the same tribe. The mythical level of the same tribe had to stand on the side of the dark elves. Would they join the war or not? Helatana sent the monsters to persuade them, and they still joined the war. Maybe the other side had to stand on the side of the dark elves because the monsters were in the hands of the dark elves? They should be paddling on the battlefield. However, on the main battlefield of an uninhabited island in the ocean, they were originally planning to give their own tribe some water. But they were stunned. Why? Let me finish my words, bastard. The battle on the uninhabited island was fierce, and many tribes were fighting: dragons, mermen, dwarves, tree men. The scene of dark elves and fish fighting with natural elves shocked the human ability users who participated in the battle. Unlike modern technology, their fight was more primitive, more intuitive and bloody. The technological products of mankind collided with each other over the uninhabited island, and a huge smoke filled the air. Before the smoke had dispersed, the next wave of missiles from both sides collided with each other again, exploding a more terrible heat storm. The ability users from both sides also fought fiercely around the archipelago. Chung Nua is now a dark elf. He is participating in the alien battlefield, and the weapons he carries with him are very suitable for melee. Grab a handful, smash a bunch of them. The legendary natural elf Sabino grabbed the chain extending from Chung Nua's hair. His human-like face was full of gloom. You want to take care of the people around you while fighting with me? You really look down on me. Chung Nua also raised his hand to grab the captured Solina. Both hands exerted force. The chain tightened. I didn't look down on you in the first place. Chung Nua smiled. Sabino suddenly felt a terrifying chill coming from behind, and suddenly dodged to the side, but he didn't dodge completely. His arm was cut by the sharp fan-shaped weapon from behind. Blood gushed out. Chung Nua, what a pity. Originally, Attacking the surrounding enemies was to distract Sabino's attention. The mythical level can't act rashly, the legendary level is the highest combat power. As long as you take down the legendary level on the opposite side, this battle is mostly won. The dragon breath exhaled by the dragon clan on the side exploded like a fireball, the flames scattered on the island. The island was ignited with bursts of flames. The crackling sound of dry wood and raging fire was mixed in with the sounds of various fierce battles, and was not obvious. The air-cutting fan returned to Chung Nuo, and he threw it at the nearest legendary tree man. The tree man was fighting with the mermaid. Suddenly, there was an attack. He was distracted and dodged. He was caught by the sharp nails of the mermaid Melt. Melt did not give the tree man time to relax and hit him like a storm. Sabino's face was gloomy. He waved his hands, and countless vines on the ground rolled together, forming thick vines that twisted like snakes and grabbed Chung Nuo. Chung Nuo manipulated the sky-slashing fan, attaching his mental power to the sky-slashing fan, cutting it off piece by piece, and more vines grew out at the broken ends, with a speed and scale like the tide at the drop during high tide, very fast. The silver-gray chain at the end of Chung Nuo's hair swelled up, wrapping up a part of the vines, and the blood-red mist dispersed, and the places covered by the mist showed signs of corrosion, and the vines withered quickly. The two sides fought dozens of times over the vines and chains in a short period of time, and in the end Chung Nuo had the upper hand. He broke the vines that the opponent had transformed with his mental power, and rushed towards the opponent directly on the withered vines. He grabbed the air-cutting fan, and slashed it like swinging a heavy sword. Sabino dodged easily. The calm expression on his face cracked when he felt the arm he was about to raise was numb. What stabbed its arm? Sabino missed the opportunity because he failed to raise his arm in time. Chung Nuo's next attack directly hit it head-on. A huge wound was cut on Sabino's chest, falling straight to the ground. Chung Nuo raised his lips slightly and stretched out his index finger, and several poisonous darts floated on his finger. This was the method he discovered when fighting a mid-level monster before. These high-level aliens habitually use their mental power to perceive the world, to perceive weapons, and he withdrew his mental power in advance, leaving only the inertia of the weapon's movement. When Chung Nuo was about to end Sabino's life, he suddenly deviated from the direction at the last critical moment. The air-cutting fan brushed Sabino's neck, leaving a blood mark beside his neck. Sabino's pupils shrank suddenly, and his breathing became rapid, not because he almost died, but because he felt the breath of disaster. The human ability users were still fighting, but the aliens stopped tacitly, as if the pause button was pressed. All the aliens stopped moving. Looking closely, their expressions and movements had a cautious stiffness. The human ability users soon discovered the strange behavior of the aliens. The people who were fighting tried to separate as much as possible to observe this strange scene. What's going on? Cease the fighting first. Chung Nuo's voice came from the alien battlefield. People saw that the aliens who had been fighting so hard just now actually separated. Chapter 112 Truce. Chung Nuo is not someone who will give up a great opportunity. Before he called for a truce, a collar that suppressed power that he took out from the data map appeared in his palm. Click. He buckled it on Sabino. Sabino was still in shock at the breath of disaster. The sudden restraint on his neck made him sluggish. When he heard Chung Nuo calling for a truce, his face was ferocious. He hated the Dark Elves. On the human battlefield, an MO asked Xiang Yuelong, "What's going on over there?" Xiang Yuelong hesitated. "I don't know either. Chung Nuo didn't tell me before." Lu Rong looked up at the sky with a serious expression. "There is something strange in the void, which makes me feel uncomfortable," Lu Rong said, and touched the skin of her arm, which was a little cold. It was not a crushing force, but another kind of spiritual feeling, full of malice, distorted, unknown, which made people feel resistant at a glance, even colder than the feeling she had when she watched a horror movie in the middle of the night in her early years. On this side of the alien battlefield, Chung Nuo was also looking up. It should be said that many alien races were on the alert for sneak attacks from their opponents, while paying careful attention to the disaster that appeared at the edge of this world. The disaster followed. None of the war-loving and crazy high-level alien races dared to continue. Chung Nuo also found it amazing. They were scared of the disaster. The fear of the disaster overcame everything. They stopped as soon as they were told to stop. Several mythical high-level alien races, who were watching the battle, acted in unison, and reinforced a layer of barrier on the space barrier of this world. Strictly guard against all loopholes. The instruments of the research institutes in various places of the East-West Alliance have detected an unknown wave, which is different from any monster, and this wave carries a destructive wave. Dr. Han, what is this? What a strange energy wave. Is this not a life form? The sudden cessation of the war by those advanced alien races may be because of that. The research institutes in various places passed the information up, and the headquarters of both sides received the information from the rear, and after a discussion, they notified the news. The people on the front line learned the reason, and were not surprised. They also felt the fluctuations that seemed to be a malicious collective. How difficult would it be to make those high-level alien races stop at the same time? Everyone thought of disaster at the same time. The information released when the natural elves and dark elves fought each other online before said that the dark elves were born from the natural elves affected by the disaster. And the disaster, if pushed, is something that will destroy the world. Now both humans had completely given up the idea of taking advantage of the opportunity to attack the other side. For a moment, they didn't know what to do. They waited for the notification from the rear command center and observed the behavior of those advanced alien races. The disaster had not left. They were still searching for the entrance. Although we couldn't see it, it was just this feeling that the dark and ominous things were eager to enter this world. The mythical beings of various races did not dare to relax and release their power to strengthen the barrier. This time, they released the mythical power, but the law did not suppress it. Chung Nua's eyes were solemn. He did not even want to be affected by the law. The originally fierce battlefield was very quiet for a while. Everyone maintained the state and image of half-fighting, which was particularly weird. Chung Nua said to the high-level aliens on the opposite side, "Now you are still stubborn. The disaster is attracted by the war. You have attracted the disaster again. The disaster obviously followed you because you used your power," Sabino said firmly, without the slightest hesitation. "This is also evidence," the Thorn Rabbit said in a sarcastic tone. "It was you who started the war. Don't throw mud at us." That's right. The natural elves on the opposite side were not to be outdone, and they all started to refute. "It was obviously because you used a lot of power. It was a war. It was your power." The other high-level alien races looked at each other, not knowing what to do now. "The prophecy that you destroyed the world countless times is the best evidence." Chung Nu raised his eyebrows. "Are the old-fashioned prophecies your confidence? If you want to destroy the world, it's obviously you, the natural elves, who started the war for your own selfish reasons and attracted the disaster to your world. I heard that you also called yourself the son of the world, but you destroyed your own world with your own hands. If I had unfilial children like you, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and throw you out of the house." The warm applause started from Thorny Rabbit, and the other dark elves also applauded. The natural elves were so angry that their faces turned red. "You are talking nonsense." The Thorny Rabbit held up his chin, flew beside Chung Nua, and said jokingly, "Where are your etiquette? You actually swore in such an occasion. It's really embarrassing. You don't need that kind of thing at all." The Thorny Rabbit smiled even more. "Barbaric and backward guys actually look down on us. You are still living in an era without technology, old-fashioned. You only eat the same few kinds of food, and the only entertainment activities are books that are about to be torn apart. Let's have some festivals. Otherwise there will only be fighting. I guess they don't know how to use mobile phones. They don't even know about amusement parks. They just hide in the old castle and stare blankly. So unsophisticated." The dark elves were quite normal at first, but later they used all kinds of eloquent words, like surfing the internet, which made the natural elves on the other side not only not know how to refute, but also blacked out in anger. Some words don't need to be understood at all. I know it's not a good adjective. The other high-level alien races in the Western Alliance didn't dare to speak. They could fight directly, but they didn't know how to scold back. They felt that the natural elves had been scolded to death, and now they couldn't do anything, so they were completely passive. They really scolded very harshly, especially the words that attacked the natural elves' hearts at the beginning, which were very heartbreaking. Some natural elves were so angry that they cried. The Thorn Rabbit laughed loudly. "Oh, you're crying? I'm not crying." The mythical nature elf Helitana, who was maintaining the barrier, also heard those words. "What about unfilial children? What about old-fashioned?" And the veins on his forehead stood up. "Aldiso, take care of those bad-mouthed monsters of your tribe. If you don't care, don't blame me for being rude." What they said? Isn't it the truth? Aldiso's voice was gentle and peaceful. But it was this voice, plus the content, that made Helitana angry, and his face turned grim. "Helitana, deal with the disaster first. You guys can deal with the grudge later." The giant dragon Nephi's transmitted a message, listening to the quarrel below, or rather, the natural elves being scolded unilaterally, it felt a sense of joy watching the fire from the other side of the river. It had never felt this way before. Since coming to this world, it felt that the whole dragon was calmer. In addition to the different lifestyle, it also felt numb from being tortured by the dark elves, especially Chung Nuo. Hero Anna found that the other mythical elves did not object. There were no treemen or dwarves on its side, and it was even more angry, and it felt something had deviated from the route, and was out of control. It outputted power to maintain the barrier, while thinking with a gloomy face. The aliens and humans below thought that the disaster would leave soon, and the war would continue later, but they didn't expect that after waiting for almost half a day, the disaster had not left, and was stubbornly looking for a gap outside the world. The humans had already called back their own ability users to rest. 1 day later, the disaster had not left. The high-level aliens also retreated to one side of the archipelago. 2 days later, the disaster still had not left. The war, which had not started for long, was forced to stop, and all parties went home to reorganize and rest. 10 days later, the disaster finally left, and the mythical aliens withdrew their strength a little tiredly. The tiredness was not because of too much power consumption. For the mythical, 6 people opened the barrier together, which was not very strenuous in terms of strength, but mainly consumed a lot of mental energy. For 10 whole days, they concentrated their attention with great intensity, fearing that disaster would slip in from some gap. Even if it slipped in a little, the world would be doomed. The natural elves wanted to destroy the dark elves again, but they dared not do it for the time being. However, they still firmly believed that it was the dark elves who used their power to bring about the disaster. When the passage between the two worlds was completely closed, the disaster would not easily occur, and they would continue to eliminate harm for the world. Aldiso told Chung Nuo the news. Chung Nuo passed it to the top leaders of the Eastern Alliance, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief for the time being. Since they couldn't fight a real war, they just switched to a war of words. After being scolded by the dark elves in the uninhabited islands, the natural elves learned a lesson and took the initiative to contact human things. They had to regain their face in the war of words. The natural elf Sabino, who was put on a collar to suppress power by Chung Nuo, called some human experts over, and after intensively studying the human network, he acted as the main planner to get the Eastern Alliance to return their imprisoned monsters. All the natural elves that descended into the moonlight jungle were packed up by Chung Nuo to farm. They farmed during the day and received ideological education at night. Their lives were so fulfilling that they wanted to cry. When they heard that their fellow tribesmen in the West wanted to save them, they were full of hope for the future. The top leaders of the Eastern Alliance came to ask Chung Nuo how to respond. Chung Nuo said that if they had the ability, they could come and steal the tribe monsters. If they rescued them, it would be theirs. If they didn't rescue them, they would stay together. The important members of the Eastern Alliance modified Chung Nuo's meaning into a complicated and polite version and sent it out, bombed a group of aliens on the opposite side. The two sides cursed each other online, and the fierce words shocked a group of onlookers. Chung Nuo thought they didn't dare to come, but he didn't expect that the online quarrel was just a cover. Soon after, the aliens on the opposite side sneaked over to rescue the monsters, but they were all detained by them. After a period of time of fighting with meat buns, the opposite side did not send aliens again, leaving only the quarrels on the internet. As time went on, the Dark Elves, who had seized a large number of law fragments by arriving early, had a few more legendary ones. Humans are also gradually becoming stronger. Whether it is the Western or Eastern Alliance, the social order is gradually stabilizing. However, on one side, the Wasteland version is stable, and on the other side, the Fusion version is stable. The difference between the worlds is becoming more and more obvious. The passage from the monster world to the human world has not been completely closed, and there is still no way to start a war. The aliens on the Western Alliance side can only verbally curse the Dark Elves, and continue to export the past of the Dark Elves on the internet, mainly brainwashing and splitting. After a while, the advanced alien races in the West felt that they could not continue like this. The Dark Elves had snatched a large number of law fragments, and their power was growing stronger. They were a step behind, and there were many monsters on the opposite side. They were also wearing collars, so they could not increase their power at all. It happened that the humans of the Western Alliance set a plan. They reluctantly studied it, and decided to adopt it. The West proposed a plan to replace war with competition. The alien race's requirement was that they won the Dark Elves and released monsters. The human race's requirement is to give cultivation resources if they win. The Eastern Alliance held a meeting to discuss, and they thought it was okay, and they called in an expert group to decide the content of the win or loss. If they win, the West will give cultivation resources, and the alien race will give new monsters. The alien race on the other side cursed, and changed the condition to give cultivation resources if they lose. The cultivation resources of the alien race are different from those of humans. Their treasure houses have been operating for many years, and are much more precious than those of humans who have just started to accumulate. After a lot of wrangling, the content of winning and losing, the rules of the game, etc., were finally decided. The first world competition between the East-West Alliance and alien races was born under such circumstances. This development was unexpected by everyone. Many humans who had not experienced the horror of the disaster wanted to thank the disaster. If it were not for it, this competition would have been a long-lasting war. Chung Nua told Eldiso about the latest progress and left the floating island. In the moonlight, Xiang Welong, who had the broad and strong physique of an adult male, stood at the edge of the moonlight jungle and waited for him quietly. Chapter 113 Anniversary. After the war calmed down, Chung Nua and Xiang Welong both found that it seemed that the time for their one-year anniversary of love was approaching, and they both wanted to give each other a surprise. After being busy with work, now is a relaxing and comfortable time, and they have the energy to pay attention to the arrangements for the anniversary. Chung Nua thought about it for a while, and then opened his mobile phone to check what surprises he could prepare for the anniversary of love. But Chung Nua felt dissatisfied after looking at them. They were all too ordinary. It's not a surprise. After a moment of hesitation, Chung Nua called Ouyang-di, the playboy. When Ouyang-di heard it, he immediately became excited. Surprises are easy to handle. What kind do you want? A romantic one? Chung Nua pondered for a moment and said, Do you have any romantic surprises? It seems that Xiang Yuelong prefers romantic ones, which can make up for the dullness of the previous life. Romantic, I have many options, such as booking a flower-filled room in a high-rise hotel, let the drone set up a formation or set off a fireworks show, French kiss after the fireworks show, then take out the prepared gifts. Chung Nua was not interested. Change it. Go to an island for vacation? Anything else? Send a sports car? Write it down loudly, and send it to Xiang Yuelong. I still don't think it's a surprise enough. Chung Nua frowned slightly. Are there no other better options? Ouyang-di also frowned, after thinking hard for a while. He said, Your requirements and standards are a bit high. I didn't follow the rules of lovers when preparing surprises before. You made me distracted for a moment. I can't think of anything. Does Xiang Yuelong want anything recently? Or what does he like? Like what? Of course he likes him, Chung Nua thought. If it's something he wants. Chung Nua's eyes lit up. I thought of it, thank you. Before Ouyang-di asked Chung Nua what surprise he wanted to prepare, the other party hung up the phone excitedly. He listened to the busy tone coming from the phone, complex expression. Chung Nua made him feel that it would be nice to find a true lover. This sour smell of love made him feel a little empty. He actually envied them. Not only did they share the same values, they also shared everything. It seemed that no one in the world could interfere with them. Although their love was not passionate, it was very smooth. And the smoothness was more impressive than the passion. Ouyang-di had just fallen into philosophy and thinking about the meaning of life. The black phone screen suddenly lit up again, accompanied by a ringing sound. Ouyang-di looked down and saw that the caller was Xiang Yuelong. Could he also be asking about what kind of surprise to prepare for the anniversary? Ouyang-di answered the phone with a delicate mood. Hello? I have something to ask you. The premonition came true. Xiang Yuelong asked seriously, What kind of gift is better for the one-year anniversary of our relationship? As he was on the phone, while searching for anniversary gifts on the tablet, he read through them at a glance, as seriously as if he was looking up a document. Ouyang-di was silent for a few seconds, and tentatively repeated the plan he had just told Chung Nua. As expected, Xiang Yuelong said it was not very good. What does Chung Nua want recently? Xiang Yuelong thought for a while. I understand. The other end of the phone was busy again, and Ouyang-di's mouth twitched. What on earth did you understand? Tell him. Should we say they are indeed a couple? They have the same ideas. And hang up the phone at the same speed. Ouyang-di sighed, threw the phone to the side of the soft sofa, and laid down to continue thinking about life. On the other side, Chung Nua changed his clothes, and went out after talking to Ouyang-di on the phone, riding phone-ho to a large shopping mall full of brands, and then went straight to the store selling glasses. When Chung Nua was choosing glasses, He carefully opened the data map and took a tour of the floor on it. After confirming that Xiang Yuelong was not there, he continued with confidence. This should be the surprise Xiang Yuelong wanted most. Chung Nuo picked up a pair of silver-framed glasses with a platinum chain, tested the effect in the mirror, and raised a satisfied arc at the corner of his lips. This is it. Help me pack it up. Xiang Yuelong also appeared in the mall stealthily. His cap pressed down his curly hair. He pressed down the brim of his cap, looked around the mall, and quickly found a store that sold collars. The shopping guide greeted Xiang Yuelong, and was surprised to find that this customer wearing a mask and a baseball cap was a famous legendary ability user. What style of collar do you want to buy? I feel that your lover would be more suitable for thin. Xiang Yuelong picked up a thicker one, and said concisely, it's not him who wants to wear it. Huh? The shopping guide was stunned, and his eyes subconsciously glanced at Xiang Yuelong's neck. This kind of sight, which is very sensitive to ability users, made Xiang Yuelong instinctively shift his eyes from the collar to the shopping guide. His eyes were cold, and the oppressive feeling brought by his tall physique was extremely terrifying. The salesperson quickly looked away, and said with a smile, you can take a look at this thicker collar. It is the latest model, and you can also customize your name on the inside. Xiang Yuelong touched the black collar brought by the salesperson, and rubbed the outer layer with his thumb. The texture was very good. He turned it over and looked at it for a few times, and said, pay the bill. When he said pay, Xiang Yuelong suddenly felt something. Just like a sneaky agent, he put the collar back suddenly, walked 2 or 3 steps to the shelf selling men's bags on the other side, pretending to choose something. The shopping guide on the side was shocked by Xiang Yuelong's guilty behavior. The behavior of this famous ability user was highly similar to his behavior when he secretly turned on the TV when he was a child, and turned off the TV and ran back to the room when he heard his parents coming back. He looked out in confusion and saw another equally famous ability user. His eyes lit up. It was Chung Nuo. The real person is more elegant than the photo. Chung Nuo walked over here. Hello. Another shopping guide in the store quickly came over. What do you need to see? Chung Nuo smiled and said in a gentle voice, I'm here to find someone. He said, passing the shopping guide, and walked towards Xiang Yuelong. Do you want to buy a bag? Chung Nuo's tone was a little puzzled. I've never seen you carry a men's bag. He didn't think Xiang Yuelong wanted to give him a men's bag, because it was useless, and he went out. All you need is empty hands, everything can be placed in the data map. After the Dark Elves tribe was moved out of the data map, only the outer layer of the data map remained. The outer layer is now very large, and sometimes he can't even find where the gadgets are. He recently put some shelves in the outer layer, like a courier station, to place items by category, so that it's easy to find when you need to take them. Just take a look. The internet says this is very popular recently. Xiang Yuelong pointed to a waist bag and said. The shopping guide immediately said, yes, this is our latest model this year. It is very hard to get. We only have one in this store. If you need it, this quota can be given to you immediately. Xiang Yuelong took back his hand. No, just come to see what the entity looks like. The shopping guide serving Xiang Yuelong? It feels a bit strange. Xiang Yuelong was clearly going to buy a collar just now. He looked at Chung Nuo, and then looked at Xiang Yuelong. My heart suddenly jumped, and the beating speed increased suddenly. Could it be cheating? The collar was bought for my lover, so I didn't dare to tell Chung Nuo. The fact that Xiang Yuelong and Chung Nuo were a couple was basically known to everyone in the world. They even used each other's photos as avatars, and posted many photos showing their affection. It was hard to imagine that they were posted by Xiang Yuelong and Chung Nuo themselves. Chung Nuo glanced at the various things sold in the store. This side was basically men's products, with bags, clothes, belts, etc. Chung Nuo's eyes paused for a few seconds when he scanned the collars displayed on the transparent rack on the wooden shelf. When he saw the shopping guide's expression, Chung Nuo had a question mark in his mind. This shopping guide seemed to be imagining something strange. Xiang Yuelong said nonchalantly, I'm hungry. What do you want to eat? Chung Nuo's attention returned to Xiang Yuelong, and he said, anything is fine. What do you want to eat? Cold noodles. It's so hot recently. It's really hot these days, after all. It's July, and it's hot. The two left the store while talking. The two shopping guides were mumbling. One dared to guess. The other dared to believe. And they all condemned Xiang Yuelong in their hearts, and were curious about what kind of person could make Xiang Yuelong want to cheat. Chung Nuo was super perfect, and he also had the appearance of a dark elf. And he could also become mini. Xiang Yuelong came back a few hours later and simply asked for the collar he wanted to order just now. He left the store in a hurry. His thief-like feeling made the two shopping guides think that Xiang Yuelong must have someone else outside. They were struggling whether to tell Chung Nuo. In the end, their professional ethics made them decide to pretend not to know. But Xiang Yuelong soon came back and came to this brand store for the third time in one day. Xiang Yuelong put the packed box on the glass counter and said, "I forgot something just now. Please help me engrave my name. It's an expedited item. I need it at midnight the day after tomorrow. I'll pick it up tomorrow night." The two sales assistants looked at each other and felt a sense of excitement approaching a big melon. "Whose name do you want to engrave?" "Chung Nuo." "The two sales assistants?" Xiang Yuelong saw that the sales assistants looked shocked and wondered in his heart, "Is there any problem?" No. The sales assistant hurriedly said. "Come to pick it up tomorrow night?" "Yeah, is it okay?" Yes. Xiang Yuelong left as fast as the wind again. The two shopping guides were left in shock. It wasn't cheating, but it was played so well, and there was a sour smell of love coming towards me. Rich people love like this, really rare. When I think about how I just guessed that he cheated, I'm really damned. The next night, Xiang Yuelong came to get the collar again in a sneaky way, and left quickly with the box. Chung Nuo was watching TV in the living room, and saw Xiang Yuelong coming back, and said casually, "How is Anmo?" Xiang Yuelong changed into slippers and walked in. He sat down next to Chung Nuo and answered, "If you are lucky, you can break through the bottleneck and advance to the advanced late stage this month." He just went out on the pretext that an MO asked him to spar with him. But he actually went to get the collar. After getting it, he left the city and went outside to find a few monsters to fight. He forged traces of sparring and pretended that he was fighting with an MO. He didn't need to collude with an MO in advance, because tonight at midnight was their 1-year anniversary. It's only a few hours, it won't be exposed at all. Xiang Yuelong is very confident. Compared to the past, when he felt guilty even telling simple lies, now Xiang Yuelong is much calmer when telling lies. He squeezed next to Chung Nuo, relying on the air conditioning. He leaned sideways and wanted to rest his head on Chung Nuo's neck. "Let's take a shower first." Chung Nuo pushed his head away. "I'm sweating all over."